Once they left, I let out a slow breath and adjusted the strap on my worn travel bag. A few students were still hanging around the lobby. Some pretended not to look my way, others whispered openly. I ignored all of them and headed for the reception desk. My boots echoed softly on the marble floor, clack, 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 until I came to a stop. Behind the counter sat a woman in her mid-30s, uniform immaculate, quill moving smoothly across parchment. Her brown hair was pulled into a neat bun, glasses balanced on her nose as she wrote. I cleared my throat. "Excuse me." She looked up, pushing her glasses up the bridge of her nose. "Yes? How may I assist you?" "I'm Michael Willson. First year. Rank 1. Her hand twitched. The quill dragged an ugly line across her page. "You're rank 1? "Yes." Her eyes widened a fraction. "Rank 1. And not from the 8 families or the royal lineage." She muttered under her breath. "Incredible." Then her gaze sharpened, measuring. "Are you a Viscount's son? Marquis? Duke, perhaps?" I stared at her. "No, just a commoner." The silence after that was almost comical. Her eyebrows shot up like I'd just announced I'd fallen from the sky. "A commoner?" Truly, I resisted the urge to rub my temples. "Can I get my room key?" Yes, of course." She scrambled, riffling through a stack of rune-inscribed cards before sliding one across the counter. Blue sigils shimmered faintly along its edges. "Here you are. Room 1001, 7th floor." I took the card and nodded. "Thanks." As I turned away, I could feel her stare still on my back, practically glowing with disbelief. "A commoner? And rank 1? Yeah, get used to it." The elevator chimed softly as the doors opened. Inside, polished silver walls reflected faintly glowing runes. I stepped in and pressed the engraved 7. The lift hummed, gliding upward so smoothly I barely felt it move. My reflection stared back at me. Messy black hair, sharp eyes, travel-worn clothes. Not exactly the image of a noble genius. When the doors parted, a quiet hallway greeted me. Golden sconces lit the red carpet in a warm glow, the air carrying a faint scent of lavender and parchment. Room 1001 waited at the far end. The door was polished wood engraved with swirling runes. I slid the card into the slot. A soft click, a blue glow. Beep, click. The lock disengaged. I pushed the door open and rolled my bag inside. Okay. Damn. Light flared on, revealing a suite that made the inn I'd been staying at look like a roadside shack. White marble floors traced with golden runes. Walls paneled with enchanted wood that radiated gentle warmth. A crystal chandelier overhead, glowing with mana stones that pulsed like captured stars. A king-size bed stood in the center, dark velvet sheets embroidered with silver thread. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed a view of the academy grounds, training fields, arenas, and tiny ant-sized cadets running drills below. "Not bad," I muttered, walking further in. "Not bad at all." To the left, a private training room, padded floors, adjustable dummies, and marks on the walls where someone had clearly tested a few spells before. To the right, a gravity chamber, runic circles etched into the floor, just waiting for me to set how much I wanted to suffer. And tucked into the corner, gleaming like a gamer's fever dream, was a VR combat simulation capsule. My inner nerd quietly screamed, "Yeah, I could get used to this." But what really made me stop was the kitchen. A full kitchen, in a dorm. Black marble counters. A rune stove. Cabinets neatly stocked with spices and basic ingredients. In the corner, a mana-powered fridge hummed softly. Curious, I opened it. Fresh vegetables. Cuts of meat. Eggs. Milk. Everything neatly arranged. For the first time in a long while, something warm stirred in my chest. When had I last cooked properly? Back in my old world, cooking usually meant instant noodles, frozen junk, and whatever I could throw together during raid queue. But this was actual prep, actual ingredients, an actual chance to make something that didn't come out of packet. I grinned. All right, let's see if I remember how to do this. I rolled up my sleeves and pulled out what I needed: eggs, fresh boar meat, onions, tomatoes, and a small bundle of herbs I didn't recognize but smelled sharp and clean. The pan heated with a low whump as I channeled mana into the rune plate. Oil hissed quietly as it warmed. First, the onions. Chop, chop, chop. The sound of the knife on the cutting board felt good. Familiar. Tomatoes followed, diced into neat cubes and tossed into the pan. They hit the oil with a satisfying hiss. The boar meat went in next, thick slices searing as the scent of roasting meat filled the kitchen. I seasoned it with salt, crushed pepper, and those unknown herbs. They glowed faintly when they touched the heat, releasing a burst of aroma that made my mouth water. Okay, those are definitely enchanted, I said, laughing under my breath. Magical seasoning. Sure, why not? I whisked the eggs and poured them in last, letting the edges crisp while the center stayed fluffy. Folded everything together into an omelet stuffed with meat and vegetables. By the time I was done, the table looked like a solo feast. Glazed boar steak, a golden omelet, and fresh bread warmed in the room oven. I sat down and just looked at it for a moment. My chest felt strangely tight. Been a while, huh? I whispered. I took a bite. Crunch of onion, tangy tomato, juicy, smoky boar meat, soft, fluffy egg tying it all together. Not restaurant level, but real, warm, mine. I leaned back and chewed slowly, actually taking my time for once. Back home, I never thought I'd miss something as simple as cooking. But here, after all the chaos, dying, waking up in a game world, grinding like my life depended on it, this felt grounding. All right, arcade, I muttered with a soft laugh. Throw your dungeons and monsters at me. If I can still do this sometimes, I'll live. I cleaned the plate until it was spotless, then washed everything in the sink. The gentle splash of water and clink of dishes felt more soothing than any spell. As I dried my hands, the system's blue glow flickered at the edge of my vision. Ding! Minor buff gained. Well-fed, plus 10% stamina regen for 3 hours. I snorted. Of course, even dinner comes with a buff. Still, I wasn't complaining. Full stomach, ridiculous room, decent bed. For the first time since I woke up in this world, I actually felt peaceful. After packing away the dishes, I settled at the study desk. The academy had already laid out parchment, ink, and quill like they were daring me to be productive. My smartwatch reminder hovered faintly. Notice, as first-year representative, you are required to give a short speech at the welcome ceremony. I slumped back. Right, the speech. For the next hour, I fought a battle far worse than any dungeon. Draft number 1. Fellow cadets, let us strive together for excellence. Nope. Sounded like a cheap motivational poster. Draft number 2. As the top scorer, I humbly accept. Yeah, even I didn't buy that. The moment I said, humbly, someone like Edric would probably choke laughing. Draft number 3. Supreme Hall rules, Common Hall drools. Okay, that one's a war crime, I muttered, dragging a hand down my face. By draft 6, the parchment looked like a casualty of war. Lines crossed out everywhere, ink blots and half-finished attempts like, we should all work hard? Maybe? I dropped the quill. You know what? I'll wing it. This was exactly the kind of thing that never went the way you planned anyway. Protagonist prepared speeches, then something happened, and everything went off script. Might as well lean into it. I pushed away from the desk and let myself fall backward onto the absurdly soft bed. Boots off, eyes closed. The mattress hugged me like a cloud. The sheets were cool and smooth. For once, I fell asleep without thinking about exams, monsters, or the fact I'd already died once. The next morning, steam rolled around the marble bathroom as I stepped out of the shower. The water runes kept the temperature perfect, warmth soaking into my muscles. The faint scent of enchanted herbs clung to my skin. This place really is a resort, I muttered, drying my hair with a towel that felt more expensive than my entire old apartment. I was halfway through buttoning a casual shirt when the door chimed sharply. Ding dong. I paused. Already, I walked over and opened the door. A neatly dressed staff member stood outside, arms full with 2 folded packages tied in silk ribbon. The Arcade Academy crest, sword crossed with staff, ringed by flame, was stitched over his chest. Cadet Michael Willson? He asked. That's me. He bowed slightly and handed me the packages. Your official first-year uniform and your training tracksuit. Please wear the uniform to today's welcome ceremony. Got it. Thanks. He nodded and left, footsteps fading down the hall. I set the bundles on the bed and untied the first one. Inside lay the academy uniform, a black blazer edged with silver trim, the arcade crest embroidered over the heart. Beneath it, a crisp white shirt, dark tie, fitted trousers, and polished boots. Even folded, it screamed prestige. The second bundle held the training tracksuit, sleek black fabric threaded with faint rune patterns, designed to withstand strain and channel movement. I ran my fingers along the blazer. Mana tingled faintly under my touch. Fancy, I muttered. Definitely an upgrade from hand-me-downs. I held it up in front of the mirror and couldn't stop the small smirk. Yeah, that'll do. I might actually look like a main character for once. Folding the tracksuit back up, I started putting the uniform on piece by piece. Shirt, tie, blazer, trousers, boots. Outside, the academy bells began to toll, the sound rippling across the grounds in slow, steady beats. Reminder, welcome ceremony begins in 2 hours. I straightened my tie, smoothed the blazer, and looked at my reflection again. A boy stared back, but not just a boy. A first-year cadet. First-year representative. Rank 1. Standing at the start line of something much bigger. Time to play the part, huh? I said quietly. I grabbed my watch, adjusted my sleeves, and headed for the door. Auditorium, ceremony, nobles, rivals, expectations. Let them come. I reached the auditorium in about 5 minutes from my room. The doors of the great ceremony hall swung open with a long creak as cadets started pouring in. My breath hitched. I'd seen this place in the game more times than I could count, but being here in person was something else. The Supreme Ceremony Hall wasn't just an auditorium. It felt like a cathedral built for war. Towering marble pillars lined the walls, each carved with runes that glowed faintly with mana. Crimson and gold banners hung down, embroidered with the crests of hunters who had become legends. The chandeliers overhead weren't lit by candles, but by clusters of mana stones, pulsing softly like captured stars. Stained glass windows rose high along the walls, breaking the sunlight into colored shards that slid across the polished white marble floor. At the center of it all, a massive dragon sigil was engraved into the ground, its stone eyes glowing with blue flame. Rumor said that flame had been burning since the academy was founded. Rows of seats filled quickly with first years. The chatter slowly shrank into nervous whispers, like everyone had suddenly remembered this wasn't just a school assembly. And we weren't alone. Up above, the balconies circling the hall were packed with upper-year cadets. Their uniforms had gold trim and insignias marking their rank and division. Some leaned on the rails with arms crossed, looking down at us with smirks like predators watching new prey enter the arena. Look at them fidget. Another batch of weaklings. Let's see how many wash out before midterms. Even without looking up, I could feel their gazes. Heavy, weighed, measuring, a reminder of where we stood in the food chain. And then there were the instructors. On the raised dais at the front, obsidian chairs lined the platform. The professors sat there like a council of bosses, each one radiating threat and experience. Alastair Greythorn, sword instructor, sat rigid as a spear, scarred jaw set, iron gray beard framing a face that never stopped analyzing. His hawk-like gaze swept the hall like he was picking out weaknesses. Cedric Irongill, the alchemy instructor, was already fiddling with a vial of glowing liquid, swirling it absently like the ceremony was secondary to whatever experiment he was running in his head. Sarah Everhart, mana exploration, had a floating tome open in front of her, golden runes turning themselves as she skimmed, barely glancing up. Nathan Pendragon, combat instructor, leaned back with arms crossed over a broad chest, golden hair and clean features making him look like the generic hero of a propaganda poster. Adam Beckett, magic theory, sat with eyes closed, lips moving silently like he was reciting spells instead of listening. Harry Stonerick, runes, wore robes lined with etched glyphs that pulsed with mana. His fingers tapped out invisible patterns on his knee. Garrick Dawson, dungeon and monster studies, had wild hair and sharp, tired eyes that said, "I've seen too much and also I'd go again." Ronwell Hart, battle instructor, lounged like he was bored, but his hands, drumming on the armrest, gave him away. Fighter's hands. Restless. Dorian Ford, history and culture, was the only one smiling openly at us, his robes marked with old emblems and crests. He looked like he'd stepped out of a dusty legend himself. Ben Stock, second-year combat instructor, stood behind the others, built like a wall, hands behind his back as he watched quietly. And above them all, Vice Principal Sophia Emberhart, to the left. Crimson hair, tied back neatly, her presence like a banked flame that could blaze at the smallest spark. Dean Drissanayak, to the right. Old, robed in black, but his eyes were bright and sharp, weighing, calculating. But when the hall finally fell, completely silent, everyone's attention went to the man in the center. Principal Harold Crimson. He rose slowly, like a mountain unfolding. His white beard flowed down his chest, and the staff in his hand was engraved with old, heavy runes. But his back was straight, his gaze razor-sharp. This wasn't some fragile elder. This was a monster who'd simply decided to sit down for a while. Even the air felt heavier as he stepped forward. "Welcome, cadets." His voice didn't need to be loud. It just landed. Every word sank into bone. You stand now in the heart of Arcade Hunter Academy, the crucible where hunters are forged. His staff struck the floor. Tum! Runes all across the hall lit at once, casting a golden glow over us. You have passed the entrance examination. You have shown courage, wit, and strength. For that, you have earned the right to stand here. A ripple went through the first years. Backs straightened, chins lifted. You could feel the pride buzzing under the nerves. Then his eyes hardened. Do not mistake this for victory. The temperature seemed to drop. What lies ahead is not comfort, but hardship. This academy will test not only your bodies, but your minds, your will, and your very soul. He pointed his staff toward us, gaze narrowing. Some of you will break. The words hit like cold water. No one moved. No one even dared to whisper. Some of you will falter. Some of you will fall. And only a handful will stand at the summit. He let that hang in the air for a long moment. Then, slowly, his expression softened into the smallest ghost of a smile. But those who endure, those who keep their blades steady in the storm, who sharpen their minds against despair, will leave this place not as children, but as hunters, protectors, heroes. His staff hit the floor again. Boom! Mana rippled through the hall, humming in the stone, in the air, in us. This is your path, he finished. Walk it with pride. The silence shattered. Applause crashed over the hall. First years clapped like their lives depended on it. Some were fired up, some were forcing it, but everyone reacted. On the balconies, seniors pounded on the rails or gave stiff, measured claps. Instructors nodded, some with grim approval, some with quiet calculation. My heart was pounding. So that's the Crimson's speech. Almost line for line like the game. But hearing it here, with my own ears, feeling the mana in the floor vibrate, the weight of his aura pressing down, it hit very differently. As the runes slowly dimmed and the light settled back to the usual soft glow of the chandeliers, the applause faded out. For a moment, the hall held its breath. Then, clap, clap, clap. The sound slowly scattered, cadets letting out the tension with forced confidence and shaky grins. Up above, the seniors' reactions were sharper. Some smirked down at us. Look at them getting fired up. Cute. Combat trials will sort them out. Half of them will run home crying before the midterms. Check out that blonde one, Leon Lionheart. But he thinks the surname will carry him. I caught snippets here and there, but I kept my expression neutral. Inside, I almost smiled. Yep, exactly on script. Elite NPC bullying behavior. Seen this trope 1,000 times. Didn't make their aura any less suffocating, though. Even without moving a muscle, they radiated a reminder. You're at the bottom now. To my right, Leon stood straight, jaw tight. His fists were clenched behind his back, knuckles white. In his eyes, pride and irritation flickered together. Selena, next to him, gave him a small glance. Calm, assessing. She didn't say anything, but the silent nudge was there. Don't react. Eric, on the other hand, couldn't keep his mouth shut. He leaned toward me with a derisive snort. TCH, all this drama for nothing. Think Crimson's speech will scare me? Just wait, commoner. In the combat trials, I'll crush you in front of everyone. I didn't bother looking at him. My voice stayed flat. Relax. You sound like you're trying to convince yourself. His face twitched. For a second, I thought he'd snap back, but any argument died when Vice Principal Sophia rose from her seat. The hall went quiet instantly. Her voice carried without effort. Now, she said, allow me to introduce someone who represents what this academy demands. A cadet who has endured, who has risen, and who now stands as a model for you all. My heartbeat picked up. Here we go. The Flame Empress entrance. Boom. The huge rear doors slammed open. A wave of heat rolled into the hall, subtle but impossible to miss. Step, step, step. Each footstep echoed, calm and unhurried. The atmosphere shifted. Conversations died mid-whisper. She walked in, Emily Lionheart. Her crimson hair blazed in the chandelier light, tied back in a warrior's knot. Her uniform wasn't standard first-year blue. It was black with gold trim, the colors of someone who had already proven themselves beyond doubt. Her aura burned, not like a wild firestorm, but like a controlled forge flame, focused and deadly. The air seemed to shimmer around her as she walked down the aisle. Whispers erupted. That's Emily Lionheart, the Flame Empress. Third-year rank 1. She's the student council president, right? Even the seniors shut up. Some frowned, some watched with narrowed eyes, some crossed their arms a little tighter, like they were bracing. I watched her closely. Emily Lionheart, the pillar of the academy, Arc Leon's older sister. The sword that clears his path and the pressure that forces him to climb higher. In the game, she's the standard, the wall everyone measures themselves against. And now she was here, exactly on cue. Her gaze swept across the hall, hard and sharp. Not gentle, not welcoming, challenging. When her eyes passed over me, just for a moment, I felt it, heat flaring low in my chest, like someone had pressed a brand against my ribcage. Then she looked away. Behind her walked Alice Nightvale, student council vice president. Dark hair, composed expression, every movement precise. Where Emily blazed, Alice was cold focus. If Emily was a sword of fire, Alice was a scalpel of ice. They reached the dais and took their places. Sophia gestured toward them. Behold your seniors, she said. The peak of what you may become, if you survive. The hall buzzed again, not with applause, but with hushed awe, envy, fear. I kept my hands in my pockets, expression calm. Inside, my thoughts were racing. The story was moving forward. The major pieces were on the board. Now, I just had to decide how I was going to break the script.
Hey everyone, welcome to our channel, and thank you for your support. If there's a favorite novel on the channel and you want the next part, you're just one step away. Become a Patreon member and I can make it depending on your tier. Thank you for your attention.
Emily Lionheart stood before us, her mere presence eclipsing everything that came before. Even the glowing runes etched into the marble walls seemed dimmer now, as though yielding to her aura. The heat was subtle but not suffocating, not unbearable but present, like standing a few feet from a bonfire on a winter's night. It made the air shimmer faintly, distorting the space around her, and the cadets felt it. I heard a sharp gasp somewhere in the crowd. Another cadet clutched at his chest, eyes wide, his breath coming faster. Whispers spread like sparks leaping from dry wood. She's suffocating me just by standing there. No, that's her mana leaking, right? It has to be. She's controlling it. This is her holding back. Eric, standing only a few rows from me, clenched his fists so tightly I could hear his knuckles pop. His usual arrogance faltered for just a heartbeat, his lips twitching. Then he forced a smirk, raising his chin as though daring the fire to swallow him. TCH, big deal, he muttered under his breath, though I noticed he shifted his weight back, as if unconsciously distancing himself from her. Selena, on the other hand, didn't move at all. Her violet eyes glimmered faintly, sharp and observant, drinking in every detail of Emily's entrance. She didn't look intimidated, but she did look wary. Leon was another story. His jaw tightened, and I saw his throat move as he swallowed hard. A mix of awe and pressure weighed on his features. This wasn't just any senior for him. This was his elder sister, the blazing sun he'd grown under his whole life. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Sister." His voice trembled. Not from fear, at least not only from fear, but from the crushing weight of comparison. Yeah, I thought, watching him carefully, this is the moment where his shadow truly begins. The place where his inferiority complex takes root. Leon Lionheart, the younger brother, always living in her fire. I've seen this story play out before. As for me, I kept my posture relaxed, hands still in my pockets, expression calm. But my gamer brain was firing on all cylinders. The aura control, that's not just raw mana. She's tempering the heat into her sword intent. Efficient, lethal, no wasted energy. She's even stronger than the early game scripts made her out to be. Above us, even the seniors on the balconies shifted uneasily. Some crossed their arms tighter, others stopped whispering altogether. I caught fragments of their mutters. Lionheart Flame, always too damn bright. She's grown again, stronger than even the instructors from the outer branches. Humph. No wonder she's council president. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't just us first years who were under pressure. Even the upper years, the predators watching from the balcony, were caught in her firelight. She didn't just dominate the stage. She dominated the entire academy. Vice Principal Sophia smiled faintly, her voice clear as a bell as she extended her arm toward Emily. Third year, rank 1, president of the student council, known across the continent as the Flame Empress. Emily Lionheart. Applause thundered this time, though it was uneven. Some cadets clapped furiously in awe. Others hesitated, their palms stiff as they forced themselves to join in. Emily did not bow. She did not wave. She simply stood, calm, composed, her aura burning in silence. Then, slowly, she reached for the hilt at her waist. Shine. The sound of her sword leaving its sheath sliced through the hall like lightning. The whispers died instantly. The silence was absolute. Her blade gleamed, the runes etched into its steel glowing faintly red, as though the metal itself had been forged in dragon's breath. And as she raised it, flames coiled along its length, quiet at first, then louder, crackling like a beast eager to roar. I felt my heartbeat quicken despite myself. Here it comes. The demonstration. Her sword drawn, fire whispering along its edge. The hall had gone utterly silent. Even the crackle of mana lamps seemed to bow to the heat radiating from her blade. Her crimson hair shimmered like molten metal under the chandeliers, and her golden eyes swept the crowd like a predator's calm, calculating, merciless in their certainty. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear, firm, each word cutting with a rhythm that left no room for doubt. Cadets, you've passed the entrance trials. You stand here believing yourselves to be strong, to be chosen. Her blade tilted slightly, and the fire rippled outward, faint sparks licking at the air, vanishing before they could touch the marble. But strength isn't measured in one trial, nor in one victory. This academy will strip away your illusions. It will break you, crush you, and force you to rebuild yourself, stronger or not at all. A murmur rippled through the cadets. Some straightened their backs defiantly. Others looked down, already shaken by the weight in her tone. I watched closely, eyes narrowing. No wasted words. No sweet encouragement. Just truth and pressure. The academy's philosophy distilled into flame. Emily's gaze sharpened. You wish to know what awaits you if you endure? Then watch. She raised the blade. Fush! Flames erupted, coiling skyward like a dragon freed from chains. The temperature spiked instantly. The nearest cadets flinched back, covering their faces. Even from rows away, I felt the heat brush against my skin like the breath of a furnace. Her sword descended in one smooth arc. Crayak! The stone podium at her side split, melted, and caved in all at once. Fire spread in a perfect crescent, the marble glowing orange, dripping molten rivulets onto the floor. The heat warped the runes nearby, making the very air shimmer. Gasps erupted. One first year stumbled backward, tripping over his chair. Another cadet muttered, "Impossible," before biting his lip to silence himself. Even some of the seniors above leaned forward, eyes wide. A third year whispered with disbelief. She didn't even channel her full mana. From the staff seats, instructors exchanged glances. Professor Nathan Pendragon, the combat instructor, let out a low whistle. As overwhelming as ever. That girl doesn't demonstrate. She intimidates. Vice Principal Sophia simply smiled knowingly, while Dean Darisu folded his arms, unimpressed. Intimidation is a form of control. She's ensuring their respect from day one. Principal Harold Crimson stroked his beard with a faint grin. No, not respect. Fear. And fear has its uses. The heat lingered, though Emily had already lowered her blade. She didn't sheath it. She let the fire hum quietly along its edge as her gaze returned to us. "This," she said firmly, her tone unwavering, "is the difference between passing a trial and surviving in the real world." Her words hung in the air, heavy as molten iron cooling on an anvil. I kept my face neutral, but my brain was buzzing. Flame, arc condensed mana. No visible casting delay. Swordsmanship fused with elemental output seamlessly. She's master hybrid combat to a degree most pros in the game only reached mid-tier. And this is her, holding back. My heart pounded with excitement despite myself. The Flame Empress, Emily Lionheart, a living raid boss. No wonder even instructors treat her seriously. Beside me, Leon's fists were trembling at his sides. His eyes reflected the flames on stage, not with awe, but with frustration and something deeper. Selena noticed too, her gaze flicking between the siblings. A small frown tugged at her lips. Eric, predictably, scowled, though I noticed sweat glistening on his forehead. He whispered through clenched teeth, "Damn show-off." Emily finally let the fire fade, the sword sliding back into its sheath with a crisp shink. She exhaled softly, not even winded. Her presence still burned in the hall, but the oppressive weight lessened just enough for cadets to breathe again. Then her golden eyes locked on us. No, not on us. On me. Her lips curved into the faintest of smiles. "And now, let us hear from your first-year representative." The hall erupted in whispers again. "Representative? That's Michael Willson, right? The rank one, the one who got perfect scores. They say he's a commoner. Can that even be true?" Above, the seniors leaned against the railings, their eyes sharpening with curiosity. Even the instructors turned their heads, all of them waiting. My name was called. I felt every gaze latch onto me as I stood. My chair scraped against the marble with a sharp screch. My footsteps echoed, steady, deliberate, as I began the walk to the stage. Inside, my gamer instincts whispered, here it is, the welcome ceremony speech scene. The moment the hidden rival is revealed, and I'm standing right in the middle of it. I kept my face calm, expression unreadable. Step, step, step. Every sound carried in the suffocating silence. And as I reached the podium, Emily Lionheart turned her head slightly, her golden eyes locking onto mine, testing me with fire. The hall was still humming with the heat of Emily Lionheart's flames when my name was called. Every pair of eyes, first years, seniors, even the instructors up on the dais, shifted toward me like a wave. The scrape of my chair against the marble floor rang out. Screech, a sound so sharp it cut through the silence, echoing against the tall, rune-etched walls. My footsteps followed, steady and deliberate. Step, step, step. Each one bounced back at me, magnified by the suffocating stillness. I could almost feel the whispers pressing at the back of my skull, though no one dared speak loudly yet. Here we go. The welcome ceremony speech event. One of those make-or-break flags. If I keep it safe, they'll forget me in a week. If I throw fire, well, they'll never forget. I kept my posture straight, hands loose at my sides, eyes half-lidded as though I didn't care about the hundreds staring at me. The gamer inside me was grinning. The Michael I'd inherited would have crumbled. But me? I was about to pour gasoline over this hall. When I reached the podium, Emily stepped back. Her sword was sheathed now, but her golden eyes lingered on me for a beat longer than necessary, faint curiosity flickering within. I smirked at her, then leaned toward the crystal microphone. Mic test. Test. Boom. The enchantment carried my words across the hall in a burst of clarity. The anticlimactic awkwardness was palpable. For a heartbeat, silence. Then, puff, a snort from somewhere in the back. Another cadet outright chuckled. The tension cracked. A ripple of laughter spread like a wave through the first years. Even some of the seniors above smirked, shaking their heads. Is he serious? What kind of rank 1 does a mic test? He's treating this like a tavern stage performance. I straightened, brushing invisible dust from my uniform with exaggerated care, and when the laughter began to die down, I let my voice rise. Now that I have your attention, the crystal flared, amplifying my words so that even the last row couldn't escape them. I know what many of you are thinking. How does a commoner, someone with no title, no great lineage, stand here as your rank 1? The hall shifted. Whispers erupted immediately, hushed but sharp. He said it himself, commoner? So it's true then. He's not even from the houses. Impossible. There must be some trick. Faces twisted, some in disgust, some in disbelief, others in fascination. Nobles in particular straightened in their seats, frowns deepening. I let the murmur build, then slammed my palm against the podium. Bang! The sound reverberated, silencing them. Yes, I am a true commoner. My voice echoed, bold, unwavering. I don't belong to the royal family. I'm not tied to the great 8 houses. And I'm certainly not the pushover character of someone's bedtime novel. Gasps. Someone hissed. A boy in the second row clenched his jaw so hard I thought his teeth would crack. The nobles were visibly bristling now, offended that their lineage was mocked so openly. I didn't let them interrupt. I pressed forward, stabbing the air with my finger as I spoke. You call me a disgrace? Then listen carefully. If I am a disgrace, then you, with all your titles and all your heritage, are even greater disgraces for letting a commoner like me stand above you. The explosion of voices was instant. He dares to look down on us. Arrogant bastard. Unforgivable. Cadets rose half from their seats, only to be pulled back down by friends. Fists clenched, eyes burned with rage. And yet, among the common-born cadets, the reaction was different. Wide eyes, odd whispers. A few even smirked, hiding it quickly from their noble peers. Underscore. Up on the faculty platform, the instructors were no less animated. Vice Principal Sophia's eyes narrowed, though amusement tugged faintly at her lips. This boy, he's really going to make enemies of the entire first-year class. Dean Derisu folded his arms, unimpressed. Courage is not enough. He'll need strength to back up that provocation. Principal Harold Crimson, however, let out a rumbling laugh, stroking his beard. Ah, but doesn't courage itself have its own beauty? Ha ha ha. This one is guts. Even Vice Principal Sophia sighed, though her eyes twinkled. It seems next month's combat test will be very lively. Their words floated above, unheard by us, but their gazes burned into my back. And still, I stood tall at the podium, letting the storm of whispers rage before I continued. I spread my arms slightly, voice carrying like iron through the air. Look at me carefully. I am your rank 1, not because I was born with it, not because some house paved my way, but because I seized it with my own hands. My words echoed. My chest rose and fell, the heat of the moment feeding me. There it is, the dagger in their pride. This isn't about making friends. This is about staking my flag. If they hate me, good. Hatred makes rivals. Rivals make me stronger. Behind me, I caught Emily's faintest reaction in the corner of my eye. She hadn't moved, but her brows had twitched upward. Surprise. Just for a moment. That alone was worth it. The storm of whispers hadn't even settled when I leaned forward again, resting both hands on the podium. My voice dropped, lower, sharper, forcing silence back into the hall. And since I stand here as rank 1, that means all of you are beneath me. A commoner stands above you, and that is your reality. Boom. The sentence landed like a hammer. The hall erupted instantly. He's insane. Unacceptable. How dare a commoner claim authority over nobility? I raised my hand slowly, almost lazily, letting the noise play out. My other hand brushed back my silver hair, catching the light just so, before I looked back down at them with a smile that was equal parts charming and venomous. Don't look me in the eye, I continued smoothly. Keep your heads lowered. Remember your place beneath the rank one, even if that rank one is just a commoner. Gasps. Outrage. Faces flushing red. I could see the veins bulging in noble foreheads. The first years were practically frothing, and yet I saw more than anger. I saw fear. They hated it because it was true, because I had proved it on the survival trial island. They couldn't deny my placement. I let that fear simmer. I didn't take rank one just because I'm stronger, I went on, lifting a finger as though teaching them a lesson. I took it because I wasn't a coward like the rest of you. I don't need a family name for protection. I don't need a title to shield me. I will take what I want, and I will fight anyone who tries to stop me. The nobles nearly burst out of their seats. A girl from the Vandross count house rose half a step, her violet cape swishing, but her friends yanked her back down before she embarrassed herself further. Down the row, Leon Lionheart sat stiff, his eyes wide. His lips parted slightly, as though he wanted to say something but couldn't. Leon, you of all people should understand. You'd never dare say this out loud. You'd worry about reputation, about allies, about factions. But me? I'll be the villain gladly. That's the freedom of a player, not a character. And then, the voice I was waiting for. Now, that is what we call a rank one. The words came from Eric Draven, lounging casually in his seat with his signature smirk. His tone dripped with mocking admiration, but his eyes glimmered with something sharper recognition. Emily Lionheart stood before us, her mere presence eclipsing everything that came before. Even the glowing runes etched into the marble walls seemed dimmer now, as though yielding to her aura. The heat was subtle but not suffocating, not unbearable but present, like standing a few feet from a bonfire on a winter's night. It made the air shimmer faintly, distorting the space around her, and the cadets felt it. I heard a sharp gasp somewhere in the crowd. Another cadet clutched at his chest, eyes wide, his breath coming faster. Whispers spread like sparks leaping from dry wood. She's suffocating me just by standing there. No, that's her mana leaking, right? It has to be. She's controlling it. This is her holding back. Eric, standing only a few rows from me, clenched his fists so tightly I could hear his knuckles pop. His usual arrogance faltered for just a heartbeat, his lips twitching. Then he forced a smirk, raising his chin as though daring the fire to swallow him. TCH. Big deal, he muttered under his breath, though I noticed he shifted his weight back, as if unconsciously distancing himself from her. Selena, on the other hand, didn't move at all. Her violet eyes glimmered faintly, sharp and observant, drinking in every detail of Emily's entrance. She didn't look intimidated, but she did look wary. Leon was another story. His jaw tightened, and I saw his throat move as he swallowed hard. A mix of awe and pressure weighed on his features. This wasn't just any senior for him. This was his elder sister, the blazing sun he'd grown under his whole life. He whispered softly, almost to himself, "Sister." His voice trembled, not from fear, at least not only from fear, but from the crushing weight of comparison. Yeah, I thought, watching him carefully, this is the moment where his shadow truly begins. The place where his inferiority complex takes root. Leon Lionheart, the younger brother, always living in her fire. I've seen this story play out before. As for me, I kept my posture relaxed, hands still in my pockets, expression calm. But my gamer brain was firing on all cylinders. The aura control, that's not just raw mana. She's tempering the heat into her sword intent. Efficient, lethal, no wasted energy. She's even stronger than the early game scripts made her out to be. Above us, even the seniors on the balconies shifted uneasily. Some crossed their arms tighter, others stopped whispering altogether. I caught fragments of their mutters. Lionheart Flame, always too damn bright. She's grown again, stronger than even the instructors from the outer branches. Humph. No wonder she's council president. And in that moment, I realized something. It wasn't just us first years who were under pressure. Even the upper years, the predators watching from the balcony were caught in her firelight. She didn't just dominate the stage. She dominated the entire academy. Vice Principal Sophia smiled faintly, her voice clear as a bell as she extended her arm toward Emily. Third year, rank 1, president of the student council, known across the continent as the Flame Empress, Emily Lionheart. Applause thundered this time, though it was uneven. Some cadets clapped furiously in awe. Others hesitated, their palms stiff as they forced themselves to join in. Emily did not bow. She did not wave. She simply stood, calm, composed, her aura burning in silence. Then, slowly, she reached for the hilt at her waist. Shine. The sound of her sword leaving its sheath sliced through the hall like lightning. The whispers died instantly. The silence was absolute. Her blade gleamed, the runes etched into its steel glowing faintly red, as though the metal itself had been forged in dragon's breath. And as she raised it, flames coiled along its length, quiet at first, then louder, crackling like a beast eager to roar. I felt my heartbeat quicken despite myself. Here it comes. The demonstration. Her sword drawn, fire whispering along its edge. The hall had gone utterly silent. Even the crackle of mana lamps seemed to bow to the heat radiating from her blade. Her crimson hair shimmered like molten metal under the chandeliers, and her golden eyes swept the crowd like a predator's calm, calculating, merciless in their certainty. Then she spoke. Her voice was clear, firm, each word cutting with a rhythm that left no room for doubt. Cadets, you've passed the entrance trials. You stand here believing yourselves to be strong, to be chosen. Her blade tilted slightly, and the fire rippled outward, faint sparks licking at the air, vanishing before they could touch the marble. But strength isn't measured in one trial, nor in one victory. This academy will strip away your illusions. It will break you, crush you, and force you to rebuild yourself, stronger or not at all. A murmur rippled through the cadets. Some straightened their backs defiantly. Others looked down, already shaken by the weight in her tone. I watched closely, eyes narrowing. No wasted words. No sweet encouragement. Just truth and pressure. The academy's philosophy distilled into flame. Emily's gaze sharpened. You wish to know what awaits you if you endure? Then watch. She raised the blade. Fush! Flames erupted, coiling skyward like a dragon freed from chains. The temperature spiked instantly. The nearest cadets flinched back, covering their faces. Even from rows away, I felt the heat brush against my skin like the breath of a furnace. Her sword descended in one smooth arc. Crayak! The stone podium at her side split, melted, and caved in all at once. Fire spread in a perfect crescent, the marble glowing orange, dripping molten rivulets onto the floor. The heat warped the runes nearby, making the very air shimmer. Gasps erupted. One first year stumbled backward, tripping over his chair. Another cadet muttered, "Impossible," before biting his lip to silence himself. Even some of the seniors above leaned forward, eyes wide. A third year whispered with disbelief. She didn't even channel her full mana. From the staff seats, instructors exchanged glances. Professor Nathan Pendragon, the combat instructor, let out a low whistle. As overwhelming as ever. That girl doesn't demonstrate. She intimidates. Vice Principal Sophia simply smiled knowingly, while Dean Derisu folded his arms, unimpressed. Intimidation is a form of control. She's ensuring their respect from day one. Emily Lionheart hadn't moved. She stood just behind me, arms folded loosely, her golden eyes burning with interest. Unlike the others, she wasn't angry. If anything, she looked amused, as if to say, "So, this is the path you've chosen? Then show me you can walk it." I'll let the chaos run its course, then raise my hand casually. The hall dimmed again into a low, tense murmur. This was it, the moment to seal it all. "Mark my words," I said, voice steady, unyielding. "From this day forward, The Academy will remember the name Michael Willson. A final silence. A final strike. And then, deliberately, I stepped back from the podium. The sound of my boots against the marble. Clack, clack, echoed through the hushed hall. I didn't bow. I didn't nod. I simply walked past Emily Lionheart, her eyes following me, and descended the stairs. Every cadet's gaze clung to me, burning with hatred, awe, curiosity, or ambition. But none could ignore me, exactly as planned. Inside, my thoughts spun like wildfire. This is it. The flag is set. By provoking everyone, nobles, commoners, seniors, I've forced the Academy into a state of motion. No one could treat me like background now. I've painted a target on my back, but that's fine. A target is also a spotlight. I let a small grin slip as I returned to my seat. This is the game, after all, and I intend to win it. On stage, Vice Principal Sophia exhaled softly, muttering just loud enough for her colleagues. A dangerous one, that boy. Dean Deris is scoffed. Dangerous, yes, but only if he survives his own arrogance. Principal Crimson chuckled again, his deep voice rumbling. Arrogance? No, that's conviction. The kind of conviction that either forges legends or corpses. No one replied, but the weight of his words lingered. As I sat down, Eric's smirk widened, Ren's eyes gleamed with anticipation, nobles whispered furiously, and commoners stared like they had just seen a comet streak across the night sky. Emily Lionheart turned her head toward me, her lips curving just slightly into something unreadable. The ceremony would continue. Other names would be called. More speeches would be given. But the truth was undeniable. This ceremony, this hall, this entire academy would now revolve around the declaration of one boy. The boy who dared to spit in the face of tradition. The commoner who claimed rank 1. The boy named Michael Willson. The corridor leading to Class A was unervingly quiet. Not the natural kind of silence, either this one carried weight. Every time I passed a cadet, their conversation stuttered to a halt, eyes flicking toward me, lips twitching as though fighting to hold back whatever they wanted to say. Others didn't bother holding back. That's him, the rank 1, the commoner, arrogant bastard from the ceremony. I walked on, hands tucked into my pockets, gaze fixed ahead. My boots clicked against the marble tiles, echoing down the hallway like a countdown. Did I provoke them too much? I wondered, though my expression stayed blank. Probably. Definitely. When I reached the end of the hall, the plaque above the door gleamed with engraved runes. Class A. I pushed the heavy oak door open. What greeted me wasn't a classroom. It was an auditorium. Rows of seats stretched in a semicircle, rising higher the further back they went. The stage at the bottom center was broad, with 2 blackboards looming behind it, one ordinary slate, the other glowing faintly blue with magic for projections. Sunlight poured through arched windows along the left side, painting the floor and desks in gold. And the cadets. Every single head turned as I entered. The atmosphere snapped tight. Their gazes locked onto me, sharp, hostile, probing. Some masked it behind bored expressions. Others didn't bother hiding the irritation that bled across their faces. The whispers hit almost immediately. That's him. How can nobody stand above us? Rank 1 because of luck. Nothing else. I stood still for a heartbeat, letting my eyes sweep across the rows. The layout was almost too easy to read. Front row, row 1. The spearhead of the class. Leon, seated in the center, posture stiff as stone, shoulders squared. His eyes flicked toward me for the briefest second before he looked away, jaw tight. Beside him, Selena radiated calm dignity. She didn't sneer, didn't whisper, just observed, violet eyes cool and steady, lips faintly pressed in thought. On Leon's other side sat Chris, relaxed but alert, his presence quiet, controlled. He glanced at me once, expression unreadable, then returned his gaze to the stage. Lyra, at the far end, was practically bouncing in her seat, her fiery hair catching the light. She wasn't angry, not exactly, but her grin carried the spark of a challenge, as though itching for the chance to fight me again. Ramon sat at the opposite end, arms crossed, face unreadable but his foot tapped against the floor with impatience. Second row, row 2. Eric sat in the middle, smirk curling across his face the moment our eyes met. His entire posture screamed provocation, chin tilted, eyes glinting with amusement. On his right, Run, rank 19, sat stiffly, his loyalty obvious in the way he mirrored Eric's smirk despite clearly not having the courage to back it up. Alara sat on Eric's left, arms folded, her gaze cold and analytical. She didn't bother hiding the faint curl of disdain tugging at her lips. Across from them, Aiden leaned lazily in his chair, hands behind his head, already grinning as if waiting for a brawl to break out. Aurelia sat beside him, elegant as always, her smile polite but her eyes calculating, as though already dissecting me piece by piece. Third row, row 3. Sam sat straight-backed, his sharp eyes flicking between me and the others, lips pressed in a thin line. Petrick had his hand on his chin, watching me with amusement that didn't reach his eyes. Nura, rank 15, kept her arms folded tightly across her chest, glaring at me with undisguised hostility. George, rank 17, shifted uncomfortably, clearly torn between curiosity and the peer pressure of disliking me. And then finally an empty seat at the far end. Mine. Fourth row, row 4. Sakura, number 13, sat with elegance, her gaze quiet but piercing, like a blade hidden in silk. Cian, number 20, was already scribbling notes into a small journal, barely glancing up, though I noticed the flicker of his eyes in my direction more than once. Rita, number 18, scowled openly, lips curling every time her gaze fell on me. Zach, slouched as always, gave me a bored glance and promptly yawned, as if none of this mattered to him. Morrow, number 11, tapped his fingers against his desk, staring at me with an expression that said, "Hurry up and prove yourself or shut up." Seat placement graph. Fourth row, Sakura, top hashtag 13, comma, Cian, top 20, comma, Rita, top 18, comma, Zach, comma, Morrow, top 11. Third row, Sam, top 12, comma, Petrick, top 14, comma, Nura, top 15, comma, George, top 17, comma, Michael. Second row, Aiden, comma, Aurelia, comma, Alara, comma, Eric, comma, Run, top 19. First row, Ramon, top hashtag 16, comma, Leon, comma, Selena, comma, Chris, comma, Lyra. The air was heavy. Even sitting, the top cadets radiated the kind of pressure that would have crushed a normal recruit. And every single one of them was staring at me. Yeah, I definitely provoked them too much. I forced my posture to remain casual as I walked up the steps, deliberately slow. My boots thudded softly against the wood, each sound echoing louder in the silence. Don't falter. Don't show weakness. I slid into the empty window seat at the far end of the third row. The sunlight spilled across the desk, warm against my hand as I rested my chin against it. Beyond the glass, the courtyard spread wide. Fountains sparkling, manicured gardens stretching toward the training fields. A protagonist seat, huh? I thought with a faint smirk. Third row, near the window. Classic. But the atmosphere in the room didn't ease. I could feel the stairs clinging to me like thorns, whispers spreading like smoke. That's the commoner? Rank 1 or not. He doesn't belong here. He'll fall, sooner or later. My lips twitched faintly. I'll let them whisper. Let them burn holes into my back. Because if the story played out the way I remembered, this was only the beginning. The silence in the room stretched long after I sat down. I could feel eyes digging into me from all sides, some sharp, some curious, some burning with resentment. But then, the door at the front of the class opened with a soft creak. Clack! Every head in Class A turned. And in stepped a woman who looked like she'd walked straight out of a magazine cover. The sound of heels clicked rhythmically against the marble floor as a woman entered. At first glance, she was striking. A tall, statuesque beauty with long legs and a presence that instantly drew every eye. Her hair was a cascade of platinum blonde waves, shimmering like spun silver under the ceiling lights. She wore a fitted black suit jacket that clung to her curves in a way that made several boys in the room audibly swallow. The faint click of her heels echoed in the silence, commanding attention with nothing more than sound. Her blouse cut low enough to reveal the soft swell of her chest, a teasing line that made even Eric's cocky smirk falter for a split second. Whispers broke out instantly. "Ooh, who is that? She's gorgeous. I think I saw her in somewhere. Wait, isn't that?" Her presence was disarming. Dangerous, even. I heard the sharp intake of breath ripple through the room. Whoa, is that really her? Evelyn Whitehound. No way. She's actually our instructor? Even the calmest cadets faltered. Several boys, their jaws practically unhinged, followed her every step like bewitched prey. I didn't need to look to know Eric was among them. Sure enough, when my gaze flicked across the second row, Eric had already leaned forward in his chair, smirk half melted into something far less dignified. Beside him, even Leon's composure cracked, the stiffness in his posture betrayed by the faint pink dusting his ears. Oh boy, I sighed inwardly. So much for future pillars of the academy. The woman's heels clicked steadily against the polished floor as she walked toward the stage. Behind her, the dual blackboards loomed, one chalk, one enchanted with faint runes that pulsed like veins. She walked with deliberate grace, each step carrying the confidence of someone used to commanding rooms, no matter the size of the audience. She set a sleek black laptop and a few papers on the desk at the front, then turned to face us. She reached the center stage, placed her sleek black laptop and a neat stack of papers on the podium, then swept her gaze across the room. Not casually, not like she was checking attendance. The room stilled. Her eyes swept across the class, slow, deliberate, piercing. She wasn't simply looking. She was evaluating, measuring every student as if she could strip away their bravado and see the raw truth beneath. And then her gaze found me. For a moment, our eyes locked. A faint smile tugged at the corner of her lips, amused, curious, like she already knew something I didn't. I kept my face calm, but my mind ticked rapidly. This wasn't in the script. The one meant to be here was Sarah Everhart. So why is she here? Finally, she turned to the class at large, her voice ringing out clear and confident. "Good morning, cadets." With that, she shifted her attention to the rest of the class. "Good morning, cadets." Even her tone carried weight. Smooth, commanding, but with a dangerous undercurrent. The kind of voice that could lull you into leaning closer without realizing you'd already walked into the fire. "My name is Evelyn Whitehound." The whispers started again, louder this time. "Whitehound. Evelyn Whitehound. No way, that's her. The youngest S-rank hunter." I watched the wave of recognition ripple across the classroom. Some cadets stiffened in awe. Others exchanged nervous looks. Even Leon's lips parted slightly, his composure slipping as he realized who stood before us. Evelyn's smile widened, clearly amused by the reaction. "I am an S rank. Class designation, Magic Queen. Ranked 160th globally." Her words hit like a hammer. For a first-year class to be assigned an S rank as their homeroom teacher, it was unheard of. Unthinkable. Normally, cadets were lucky to even glimpse such hunters at distant events, let alone be trained by one. And yet, here she was. I also hold the title of the youngest S rank in recorded history awarded before I turned 30. That sent another ripple through the cadets. Some male students' jaws practically hit the floor, a mixture of admiration and other thoughts. More than a few pairs of eyes dipped where they shouldn't. Evelyn noticed, of course. Her lips curled into a sly grin. "And before any of you think to ask, don't." Her tone sharpened, playful but edged with warning. A woman's age is her deadliest secret. Asking it is a crime punishable by severe consequences. A few chuckles broke out, nervous and awkward. Eric actually laughed openly, shaking his head. "Huh, now that's a teacher I can respect." Ren elbowed him quickly, whispering frantically, "Sure, you'll get us both killed." I leaned forward slightly, resting my chin on my hand. My mind was already racing. This is a divergence, a butterfly effect. My rank 1 status must have triggered it. The Academy must have decided to assign someone stronger, someone who can keep Class A in line. Evelyn Whitehound instead of Sarah Everhart, which means the script is already off track. Excitement flickered in my chest. Unknown territory. Risky, but far more interesting. Evelyn clapped her hands once, the sharp sound cutting off the whispers. "I will be your homeroom instructor for the next 4 years," she announced, "which means I'll see you rise or watch you crumble." Her gaze swept across the class again. "And I expect nothing less than your absolute best." She paused, then her eyes flicked back to me for just a second. A subtle, unspoken challenge. My stomach tightened only for me to exhale slowly, a smirk tugging at my lips. Of course. Her gaze flicked back to me as she said it. I felt my jaw tighten. A few cadets noticed too. Whispers trickled immediately. "She's looking at the commoner again." Rank 1 caught her eye. "Figures. He's dead. Absolutely dead." I sighed silently and pinched the bridge of my nose. Fantastic. As if I didn't already have enough enemies. Now the celebrity teacher just painted a target on me with one look. But before I could dwell further, Evelyn's tone shifted, lighter now. "As for what awaits you, you'll soon be tested in ways you haven't imagined. The upcoming class VR wars will decide not just rankings, but your reputations." That stirred the class immediately. VR wars? I've heard of those. They simulate kingdom-scale battles. We'll actually be commanding armies? Evelyn nodded, letting the murmurs rise. "Yes, your class will be thrust into a battlefield simulation against another first-year class. Each of you will be given roles: king, strategist, knight, scout, command unit leader, and beneath you, 200 soldiers. F rank, baseline. What you lack in strength, you'll make up in numbers and strategy." Gasps. Whispers. Leon sat up straighter, his fists tightening on the desk. Selena's eyes narrowed thoughtfully. Lyra practically vibrated in her seat, muttering, "Yes, yes, yes," under her breath like she was already ready to charge in. Meanwhile, Aurelia simply crossed her arms, lips twitching faintly. Aiden grinned fiercely, already imagining the battlefield. Evelyn's gaze flicked back to me. Again, longer this time. "Why me?" Her lips curved in that knowing smile once more, as if she enjoyed watching me puzzle through it. Finally, she exhaled softly. "But that's a lesson for another day," she said lightly. "Since this is our first day together, I won't be burying you in theories or endless note-taking." A sigh of relief rippled through the cadets. Some even straightened, their shoulders relaxing as though they'd just been spared execution. "But," she raised her hand, fingers snapping once. Snap! A crisp, echoing sound. Sparkles shwum. A shimmer of white light coalesced in the air beside her, particles of mana gathering like a swirl of snowflakes. Slowly, deliberately, the energy condensed in a shape. A crystal orb. It hovered above her palm, glowing faintly before settling onto the desk with a soft thunk. Gasps ran through the room. "What's that? Is that a mana testing orb? Wait, are we doing it now?" Evelyn placed her hand lightly atop the orb, her crimson nails gleaming under the mana lamps. Her smile widened. "And now," her golden eyes swept across the room one final time. "Let's begin." Every eye in the room widened. The crystal shimmered with an iridescent sheen, colors rippling faintly across its surface like oil on water. "Today," Evelyn continued, smiling faintly at our reactions, "we begin with something simple. Elemental affinity testing." A low murmur swept the classroom instantly. Affinity testing already? I thought that was done in year 2. Wait, no, this is an advanced orb. I've only seen one in guild towers. Evelyn tapped the crystal once with her finger. Dong! A clear sound resonated, echoing faintly in our bones. Most of you have a vague idea of what element your mana leans toward. Fire, water, wind, the basics. But mana isn't always honest. Some affinities hide until forced to reveal themselves. Her gaze lingered briefly on the first row. This orb was created precisely for that purpose. When you channel mana into it, the crystal will react and reveal your affinity. Flames for fire, sparks for lightning, a breeze for wind, and so on. She tilted her head, silver hair brushing her cheek. In rare cases, more than one reaction may occur, which, naturally, will mark you as gifted. That last word sent a ripple of competitive tension across the class. I could practically feel the collective thought buzzing in the air. I'll show her I'm gifted. Evelyn smiled faintly at the unspoken war she had just ignited. Row by row, we'll proceed. First row, step forward one by one. The rest of you, watch and learn. The air thickened with anticipation as the first cadet stood. Lyra. Her long golden hair caught the chandelier light as she rose with grace, her footsteps soft but confident as she approached the podium. The whispers started immediately. Lyra of the Braveheart family, a prodigy, they say. Of course she'd go first. She looks like she belongs up there. Even Evelyn's smile softened, as though curious. Place your hand on the orb, Miss Braveheart. Lyra nodded gently, her hand gliding over the surface of the crystal. She closed her eyes and exhaled softly, her mana flowing. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, sparkles whoosh. Flames burst inside the orb, dancing like a living inferno. The glow lit up Lyra's face in warm orange, casting firelight shadows against her features. Gasps filled the classroom. Fire affinity. Evelyn murmured with approval. But before she could continue, splash. Droplets of water appeared inside the crystal, raining down in perfect miniature before vanishing, as though an unseen tide had briefly filled it. The flames did not vanish. The orb shimmered with both, fire and water, opposite elements struggling but coexisting within the same vessel. The class exploded. T2 affinities? Sakura. Is that even possible, Nura? That's impossible. They're opposites. Run. The Bravehearts really are monsters, Aiden. Even I had to raise a brow. Fire and water. Opposing elements. And she awakened both? In the game, Lyra was strong, but this is an upgrade. My butterfly effect is snowballing again. Evelyn's lips curled into an approving smile. Impressive. Dual affinity and opposing elements, no less. That balance. With training, you could rise beyond most of your peers. Congratulations, Miss Braveheart. Lyra bowed her head politely, her expression calm, but the faint glow of pride in her eyes didn't go unnoticed. She returned to her seat with grace, her hair swaying like silk behind her. The room buzzed with whispers even after she sat. All eyes had been caught by that display. And me? I leaned against my elbow, sighing. Of course. First test of the year, and already we've got someone breaking the balance. Story pacing? Dead. My life expectancy? Dropping. Still, I couldn't help the faint smile tugging at my lips. Well, things just got more interesting. Evelyn's gaze swept across the class once again, her voice calm, yet carrying that faint excitement only a true predator felt when hunting potential. Next, the next cadet stood. Chris. His presence was quieter, steadier, like stone weathered by time. He placed his hand on the orb without ceremony. The glow deepened. Thrum. Metallic light rippled, sharp and unyielding. Beneath it, a heavier pulse earth, solid and immovable. Metal and earth. Evelyn nodded once. Strong, stable. You will be a wall others can rely on. Chris said nothing. He returned to his seat with soldierly silence. A few murmurs followed, typical of the Blackthorn line. Reliable but not flashy. Leon rose next. The air shifted. Every gaze followed him. Reverence and envy laced together. He laid his palm on the orb. Sparkles whoosh. Golden flame erupted, brighter than Lyra's, blazing with purity. It burned not like chaos, but like a beacon, holy fire and wind meant to lead. Even seated rose away, the heat prickled my skin. Mouths fell open. The Lionheart flame, so brilliant. No wonder he's ranked second. Evelyn studied him with a measured smile. A noble flame, yet even the brightest fire can consume its wielder. Be wary, Mr. Lionheart. Leon inclined his head, respectful. I watched, lips quirking. Predictable. The script is intact here. Selena followed. Quiet, serene, like the calm after Leon's blaze. The orb responded instantly. Feathers of light shimmered within, pure and radiant. A current of wind swirled around them, carrying warmth and divinity in equal measure. The class gasped louder than ever. Wind and light. Light affinity is legendary. She's blessed. Even Evelyn's composed mask slipped for a moment, her eyes glinting with rare surprise. Light. Rare indeed, with wind to carry it. The heavens favor you greatly, Miss Selina. Selina bowed gently, humility untouched, though a subtle glow of pride lingered in her gaze. Leon looked at her sidelong, something unspoken flickering across his expression. I leaned my cheek into my palm. Light affinity. That was never in the original story. Another shift. My presence is distorting the chain further. The row continued. Ramon revealed Earth. Strong but unremarkable. Then came Eric. He swaggered forward, theatrically cracking his knuckles. Prepare to be dazzled. The orb lit up with crackling lightning, sparks dancing violently. Then wind joined, whipping through the room with static force. And lastly, a dark figure emerged, is the shadow element. Perfect synergy. The class groaned collectively. Of course he gets lightning and wind. Also the William bloodline element shadow. Show off. Evelyn tilted her head, smirking faintly. A storm in human form. Let's see if you burn bright or burn out. Eric winked. Guess you'll have to keep watching, Teach. Groans rippled again. Rin stepped up next, visibly trembling. The orb glowed faintly. Earth, weak and subdued. Snickers broke out. Rank 19 indeed. Pathetic. Rin's face flushed, but Evelyn's voice cut sharp. Do not mock. Even the humblest stone is vital to a fortress. What you forge matters more than what you're born with. Silence crushed the laughter. Rin blinked, stunned, then hurried back to his seat. Eric clapped his shoulder. See? Told you you're useful, like a brick. Rin groaned. Row by row, affinities revealed themselves. Wind, water, a duel of fire and lightning that drew gasps. A rare earth-metal mix. The atmosphere thickened with each reveal. Every success raised tension. Every disappointment deepened rivalry. The orb had become both executioner and crown giver. I watched it all, resting my chin against my palm, expression unreadable. The story is unraveling faster than I thought. Affinities that shouldn't exist, strengths that shouldn't manifest this early, all because I took rank 1. The butterfly effect is alive and flapping. Then Evelyn's eyes found me. Her gaze lingered, sharp and amused, like a predator savoring its prey's anticipation. Mr. Michael, she said softly. Your turn. The room shifted instantly. Every cadet turned to me, whispers slicing through the silence. Finally, let's see what the commoner's really hiding. He can't back up his speech if he flops here. I stood slowly, brushing invisible dust from my sleeve. Each step echoed louder than it should have, the weight of 100 stairs pressing against my back. The orb glowed faintly ahead, waiting. My lips curled. So, my reveal becomes the stage, does it? The room felt heavier with each step I took toward the front. Dozens of eyes stabbed into my back, some sharp with hostility, others gleaming with anticipation, but all of them waiting. Waiting for me to succeed or fail. Waiting to confirm whether the loudmouthed commoner who seized rank 1 was nothing but smoke. Even the air carried a pulse of pressure. The scraping of my boots against the polished floor echoed like a countdown to judgment. Did I provoke them too much at the ceremony? The thought drifted by, dry as sand. Maybe, but it's too late now. I stopped before the podium. The orb sat in the center like an idol, glowing faintly in its cradle of runed silver. It was small, no bigger than a grapefruit, but the weight of its presence pressed against my skin. The crystal seemed alive, like it was already peering back at me. Its surface shimmered faintly, colors swirling like trapped clouds inside glass. I reached for it. The whispers started immediately. He'll embarrass himself. Just wait. The orb won't react at all. A commoner? With affinity? What a joke. Someone in the back muttered, watch it crack in half. That would be hilarious. Snickers rippled faintly. Not all of them were sneers, though. A girl from the third row whispered softly, "Still, what if he really shows something? He did reach rank 1. By cheating." Another hissed, "No way he did it honestly." I ignored them. Noise. Just noise. My eyes flicked briefly across the class. Leon sat in the front row, straight-backed, his arms crossed. His expression was calm, but his jaw was tight, his gaze sharp. Selena sat beside him, her face unreadable, hands folded neatly, though I noticed the faintest tilt of her head, watching carefully. Lyra leaned slightly forward, her golden hair cascading like liquid fire, lips faintly curved as if amused by the spectacle. Eric? That bastard was grinning, eyes practically glowing, like he was about to watch a fireworks show. Run, beside him, fidgeted nervously, as if praying nothing insane would happen. Even the other cadets, Zach slouched at the back, Aiden calm beside Aurelia, Ilaris studying me with sharp curiosity, were caught in the orbit of this moment. And above it all, Evelyn stood with her arms folded, eyes half-lidded, yet gleaming like sharpened ice. She looked entertained. "Whenever you're ready," she said softly. Her voice carried effortlessly, brushing against every ear. I inhaled, steadying my pulse. Then I pressed my palm against the crystal. Cold, like touching a block of winter itself. The orb pulsed. Sparkles formed. A shiver ran through me as mana surged from my core, pulled without consent. My breath fogged in the air. Frost spread inside the orb, spiraling into jagged flakes and crystalline shards. The glow turned white-blue, swirling like a blizzard captured in glass. Gasps erupted instantly. Ice affinity? That's so rare. Commoners shouldn't have that. The temperature in the room dropped several degrees. I could see my own breath curling faintly in front of me. For a heartbeat, I almost let myself relax. Ice, exactly as expected, but the orb wasn't finished. The frost began to twist, bending, warping. The glass shimmered like water, but instead of ripples, space itself bent. The air warped around the orb, distorting lines, making the world ripple like a heat mirage. A wave of whispers crashed across the room. What the hell? Is that space? No way. No way that's possible. Even Evelyn's eyes widened slightly, though her lips curved in fascination. Space affinity. Legendary tier. The tension in the room snapped taut like a bowstring. Half the cadets looked ready to faint. The other half looked like they wanted to kill me. But then, the orb began to shake. I froze. Wait, this isn't. Sparkles, BZZZT. Sparks exploded inside. Lightning bolts cracked violently, dancing across the inner surface. Sparkles whoosh. Flames erupted, twining around the lightning, licking like hungry serpents. Droplet drip. Water welled up, droplets falling inside the orb in miniature. Tornado whoosh. Wind tore through, swirling violently. Globe showing Europe-Africa rumble. The glow darkened to brown as Earth pressed against the glass, shuddering. Light, darkness, every element, all at once. The orb screamed. Sparkles KRRRSHHH. It shattered with a deafening crack. Fragments of glowing crystal scattered into the air, shimmering like falling stars. The explosion of light surged outward, rattling desks and flinging loose papers across the classroom. Hair whipped, capes snapped, eyes clenched against the brilliance. Then silence. The shards dissolved into motes of light, vanishing as if they had never existed. I lowered my hand. Not a scratch on me. The podium was bare. The orb was gone, and the classroom was frozen in stunned silence. Dozens of faces stared at me, pale, wide-eyed, disbelieving. He broke it. That's impossible. It showed everything. One cadet whispered hoarsely, "Full affinity, that's only in myths." Another muttered, trembling, No, it has to be a mistake. It has to." I swallowed hard, keeping my face neutral, though inside my chest thundered like war drums. This wasn't supposed to happen. Ice and space. That's all I had. That's what I knew. But for the orb to spit out every other affinity — fire, water, lightning, earth, wind, even light and shadow. The system's voice whispered in the back of my mind like a cruel reminder. Hidden potential revealed. Affinity paths locked. Future quests required for unlock. My lips twitched. So that's it. I do have all affinities. Not now, not usable yet, but in the future, quests will unlock them one by one. The system just outed me as a walking disaster in front of everyone. Great. Just great. I turned, walking back toward my seat slowly. The silence followed me like a shadow. Each step echoed louder than the last. Leon's eyes tracked me, sharp as a hawk's, jaw tight. Selena's lips pressed together, her gaze unreadable, though her hand clenched in her lap. Lyra tilted her head, eyes narrowed, clearly intrigued by the impossible. Eric was beaming, so wide I half expected his jaw to split. Ren looked like he wanted to crawl under his chair. Zach scowled, his fist clenched. Aiden's brows furrowed in thought, while Aurelia bit her lip faintly, clearly unsettled. I dropped into my seat with a sigh, elbow on desk, chin resting in hand. Congratulations, Michael. You just painted a target the size of the continent on your back. Evelyn finally broke the silence. Her smile was razor-thin, her voice velvety. Well, that was unexpected. Some students shuddered at her tone. It wasn't mocking. It was hungry. It seems Mr. Michael has quite the unique potential. Consider this a reminder that affinities are not the ceiling, but the foundation. Her eyes lingered on me just a fraction too long, cold calculation shimmering behind the warmth of her smile. Then she clapped her hands gently. Next, the tension in the air eased slightly as another cadet stood reluctantly, clearly dreading stepping into my shadow. But the whispers didn't stop. Full affinity, no one will believe it. He's a monster. I tuned them out, staring blankly at the window. Butterfly effect? Forget flapping wings. I just set off a nuke. The tension of my affinity reveal hadn't even cooled yet. Whispers still buzzed like insects in the corners of the room. Evelyn raised her hand, about to continue, her voice smooth as silk. Every one of you now understands the uniqueness you each carry within. Affinities are... Sparkles boom. The classroom door didn't just open. It detonated. A thunderous bang rattled the walls as the double doors slammed against the sides with enough force to make the chandeliers overhead sway violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. Papers went flying again. An aura surged through the breach. It wasn't mana in the delicate, flowing sense. No, this was pressure, raw and primal. Like the sky itself had bent, ready to crush us. It weighed on my chest instantly. My heart lurched. My lungs compressed, refusing air. My skin prickled with the burn of static. Some cadets let out strangled gasps. Others gripped their desks white-knuckled, trying not to collapse. The sound of boots followed, slow, deliberate. Thud, thud, thud. A man strode through the doors. He looked middle-aged, though the lines on his face spoke of battlefields rather than years. Sharp, wolf-like eyes burned beneath thick brows, a scar cutting down his left cheek. His hair was a silver gray, not of age, but of steel, short, rough, practical. Across his back hung a sword, not polished for show, not jeweled or ornate, just a long, weather blade, wrapped in leather at the hilt, scabbard scarred and beaten. A weapon that had killed more monsters than anyone here could count. The man's gaze swept the room once, and it was like a guillotine passing over our necks. "Little punks," he said, his voice a gravelly rumble that filled every corner of the hall. "I was waiting for you brats at the combat hall. You're 5 minutes late." The room was silent. Utterly, utterly silent. No one even twitched at the insult. Not because they didn't want to, but because they couldn't. His aura had crushed defiance right out of us. Even Eric, who always had a grin plastered across his smug face, sat stiff-backed, lips clamped shut. Ren was trembling beside him, knuckles white. Leon's gaze sharpened, his jaw tense, though he didn't move an inch. Evelyn? She simply tilted her head, smiling faintly, like this was a show she'd seen before. And me? World's greatest swordsman. SS plus rank. Alastair Greythorn. Sword hero. The name blazed in my mind. My spine prickled. Of course. Of course it's him. The living legend. The man every commoner worships. And the man who, in the original story, would one day take Leon as his disciple. My pulse hammered. In the game, seeing Alastair meant the plot had reached a pivotal moment. The man was a symbol, a beacon for the idea that birth didn't define destiny. That even without a name, without noble blood, one could still cut their way to the top. To me, though, right now, standing beneath that crushing aura, all I could think was, damn, he's terrifying. Evelyn finally broke the silence with a polite smile, bowing her head faintly. My apologies, Sword Hero Greythorn. I took a little longer than expected with the introductions. Her tone was smooth, gracious, like she was addressing royalty. But the twinkle in her eyes betrayed amusement. Alastair grunted. Then he laughed, a sharp, booming sound that cut through the tension. Huh, little girl, don't worry. It's fine. I'm just eager. He turned, scanning the students again. His gaze stopped on me. For a fraction of a second, our eyes met. The weight of his aura doubled, hammering into me. My throat dried instantly. Every instinct screamed at me to look away. My fingers curled tightly around the desk, forcing myself to hold his gaze. Alastair's lips curled, revealing the faintest grin. So, this is the brat who caused a ruckus at the entrance ceremony. Every hair on my body stood on end. Goosebumps raced down my arms. The entire class turned toward me. The whispers started again. That commoner again. Of course it'd be him. Does Greythorn know him? I clenched my jaw, fighting to keep my expression flat. Inside, my stomach had dropped through the floor. Fantastic. Just what I needed. Attention from the sword hero. As if I didn't have a giant target painted on my back already. Alastair straightened, addressing the class. All right, brats. Enough sitting around. You've wasted enough time staring at shiny orbs and blowing hot air. Get up. His voice boomed like thunder. Follow me to the training hall. Now. Not a single student hesitated. Chairs scraped back in unison, a clatter of boots echoing against marble floors as we all rose. Even those who had been sneering minutes ago moved like obedient soldiers. Evelyn smiled knowingly, gathering her laptop and papers with graceful movements. Very well, she said warmly. Students, follow Mr. Sword Hero. Tomorrow, we will continue our lessons. She turned, offering Alastair a soft bow. The floor is yours. Alastair chuckled, scratching the back of his neck. Heh, you're too polite, little girl. Then he looked back at us, sharp grin flashing. Well, brats, what are you waiting for? An invitation? The air vibrated with his presence. Almost unconsciously, every single one of us straightened and barked out in unison. No, sir, even me. The words spilled from my throat before my brain could react, like his aura had hijacked my body. And then, like a tide pulling us forward, we marched. The whispers were gone. The defiance was gone. Every cadet moved in silent lockstep, trailing after the sword hero toward the training hall. I followed too, my thoughts a storm. Ice and space affinity. Full affinity revealed. Orb shattered. Now the sword hero's interest? The story isn't just diverging anymore. It's spiraling. The moment we stepped out of Class A's lecture hall and followed Alastair Greythorn, the atmosphere shifted. The corridors were quiet, cadets marching in a half-formed line behind the man, yet every step felt like a test. Nobody dared whisper. Nobody dared fall behind. It wasn't that Alastair barked orders or glared at us. No, it was the opposite. His mere presence was enough. Each footfall of his heavy boots against the marble floor carried a weight, like the echo of a blade being drawn. Every cadet knew, without being told, that the man in front of us was no mere instructor. He was a storm wearing human skin. And when we arrived at the training hall, my first thought was that it looked more like a coliseum than a classroom. The ceiling arched high overhead, enchanted skylights letting in warm golden rays though the sun was hidden behind the academy walls. Weapons lined the walls in neat racks. Swords, spears, halberds, bows, all shimmering faintly from enchantments that made them training safe, or rather, safe enough. At the far end stood a dozen mana dummies, humanoid shapes reinforced with mithril cores to withstand mana-infused strikes. And across the floor, faint, glowing lines of runes marked sparring zones, their enchantments humming like a living heartbeat. The air itself smelled faintly of steel, sweat, and the charred scent of burned mana. Several cadets muttered under their breath. This place is massive. They say the last batch of graduates sparred against wyverns here. No wonder Alastair trains here. Feels like a battlefield already. I let my gaze sweep across the space, memory flickering. In the game's version, this hall existed, but it never felt this real. The air had a heaviness to it, a constant reminder. If you slip up here, even practice could kill you. I exhaled slowly. So this is where Leon trained under him. No wonder he grew so fast. The man in question strode to the center of the floor, back straight, sword hanging across his back. His voice, when it came, wasn't shouted, yet every syllable struck like iron against stone. Listen well, brats. Out there, beyond these walls, monsters don't care whose son you are. A goblin won't bow to your crest. A wyvern won't spare you because you're royal. And the dungeons Moss sure as hell won't close just because you cry unfair. Silence. Every cadet's face stiffened. Alastair let his gaze roam. It lingered deliberately on a cluster of nobles, their jeweled pins glinting in the light. Then shifted toward the common-born cadets just as mercilessly. Titles mean nothing. Family names mean nothing. Even talent means nothing if you don't bleed for it. His eyes, sharp as blades, finally found me. For a single heartbeat, his smirk twitched into existence. I felt a bead of sweat trail down my neck. Why does it always feel like these monsters can see straight through me? Drop your bags. Line up. Warm-ups now. Nobody questioned him. We moved instinctively, lining shoulder to shoulder. Then the hell began. 50 push-ups. Don't stop until I say, go. The air filled with groans, thuds, and sharp breaths as cadets dropped to the floor. Arms trembled. Some nobles, and used to physical hardship, collapsed before even reaching 20. Pathetic, Alastair barked, pacing between us. If you can't hold your own body weight, how the hell do you expect to hold a blade? I lowered myself steadily, focusing on controlled rhythm. Not too fast, not too slow. Every push-up burned, but I endured. Years of adapting to survive had forged some resilience into me, even before mana was involved. Up, laps around the hall. Move. The cadets scrambled to their feet, some nearly tripping as they stumbled into a jog. A few nobles were red-faced, gasping like fish. Lyra ran effortlessly, her golden hair trailing like fire. Leon ran with steady determination. Eric muttered complaints, but his strides didn't falter. As for me, I kept to the middle of the pack, conserving energy. My breathing was calm, deliberate. Let them burn themselves out now. I'll save my strength for when it matters. When the third lap ended, half the students were already collapsing against the walls, sweat soaking their uniforms. Alastair crossed his arms, unimpressed. Barely a jog, and you look like corpses. Oomph. If you can't survive 3 laps, you'll be eaten before you see your first dungeon core. The silence that followed was crushing. Nobody dared argue. Finally, Alastair jerked his chin toward the racks of weapons. Choose. The single word carried an order like a commandment. The cadets moved, drawn as if by instinct. Leon walked straight to the swords, fingers curling around one as if greeting an old friend. Selena chose a slender rapier, elegant as her every motion. Lyra took a staff, her touch igniting faint sparks of fire at its tip. Eric selected a spear with practiced familiarity, Rin stumbling after him to grab a shorter version. Aiden hefted a greatsword almost as tall as himself, grin-wide. Aurelia silently strapped twin daggers at her hips. And me? I stood before the racks, scanning. Daggers, spears, swords, axes. Each whispered promises of strength. Each had history etched into their blades. But my hand almost against my will, reached for the simple sword. The balance was plain. The weight, manageable. Nothing fancy. Just a blade, nothing more. I heard Alastair's voice then, low but sharp. Interesting choice, boy. My grip tightened around the hilt. I didn't answer. Alastair clapped once, the sound echoing like a whip crack. Now that you've got your toys, time to see if any of you know how to use them. He raised his own sword. Not a training weapon. His actual blade, scarred from countless battles. The weight of it pressed against the hull as he held it effortlessly in one hand. Watch closely. Mana flared across the steel, a steady glow wrapping the blade. He swung. Whoosh! The training dummy before him split in two with a clean diagonal cut. That, he said, voice flat, is mana infusion. The foundation of every battle you will ever fight. Without this, you're just swinging sticks. With it, you can cut steel, burn through hide, shatter bone. Learn it. Breathe it. He lowered the blade, his eyes sharp as ever. Your turn. The words mana infusion hung in the air like an incantation. We stood in a half-circle around the dummy Alastair had just cleaved in two. Its mithril-reinforced frame lay smoldering, smoke curling from the gash in its chest. That was the power of one clean strike infused with mana. Every cadet's face carried the same expression. Hunger. The hunger to prove themselves. Line up, Alastair ordered. Show me what you've got. One by one. Don't hold back or I'll know. The first noble boy stepped forward nervously, clutching his longsword. He inhaled sharply, focused his mana into the blade, and swung. Clang! The weapon bounced uselessly off the dummy's torso, leaving nothing but a scratch. The boy grimaced, sweat dripping down his face. Alastair snorted. You call that infusion? That was more like dribbling water onto a sponge. Next! The cadet shrank back in shame, cheeks burning red. One after another, students tried. Some managed faint flickers of light crawling along their blades before sputtering out. Others overloaded their mana and nearly fainted, clutching their temples. A few managed shallow cuts, enough to make sparks fly, but nowhere near Alastair's clean strike. Eric, when his turn came, thrust his spear with all the bravado in the world. Phoom! A solid dent appeared in the dummy's chest, but not a clean slice. He huffed, wiping sweat, muttering, not bad. Run, forced up after him, trembled so badly his blade slipped out of his sweaty hands mid-swing. He scrambled to pick it up, red as a beet, while laughter rippled through the rows. Pathetic, Alastair growled. Leon, however, stepped forward with a calm, steady aura. He raised his sword, mana flowing like water along its edge, and slashed. Shhhk. A crisp line cut through the dummy's chest. Not a complete sever, but smooth enough to earn a nod from Alastair. Better. You got the right rhythm. Keep at it. Selena followed with her rapier. Mana flickered like blue lightning across its narrow edge as she pierced the dummy's core with precision. It sizzled and smoked where the tip entered. Her control drew murmurs of approval. Then Lyra stepped forward, her staff in hand. Before Lyra could channel, Evelyn's heels clicked softly across the floor. She raised her hand politely, smiling faintly. May I? She asked. Even Alastair paused, then gave her a sharp nod. Go ahead. Show the kids how the robed ones fight. The cadets perked up instantly, whispers flying. Teacher, Evelyn herself. She's going to cast. Evelyn stepped beside Lyra, her staff glimmering faintly with runes. Her voice carried effortlessly across the hall, clear and melodic. Listen well. Mana infusion is not only a swordsman's tool. Mages can, and must, apply it as well. But unlike warriors, we don't pour mana directly into steel. We draw upon the atmosphere itself. Her free hand lifted, palm open. Mana gathered around her like a gentle breeze, strands of invisible power tugging toward her fingertips. By infusing atmospheric mana into your spells, you increase their potency up to threefold. Boom! A sphere of fire bloomed in her palm, crackling with heat, brighter and sharper than any beginner spell should be. And when a mage reaches higher ranks, her smile curved slightly, eyes glinting. We awaken spiritual power. This allows us to amplify spells even further while simultaneously reducing mana consumption. The fireball compressed suddenly into a thin beam before she casually released it. Whoosh! It pierced through the dummy's torso like a spear of sunlight, leaving a smoldering hole straight through its mithril chest. The hall went dead silent. Even Alastair gave a low chuckle. Show off. Evelyn twirled her staff lightly, her silver hair swaying as she returned to her seat. Consider it motivation. Lyra stepped up and copied the infusion method. Her flame burst forth, infused with atmospheric mana, and slammed into the dummy hard enough to make it stagger. Applause rippled through the cadets. Finally, it was my turn. All eyes turned toward me. Nobles sneering, commoners curious, rivals smirking. Great. The rank won spectacle. If I screw up, they'll laugh. If I do well, they'll hate me more. No winning here, huh? I gripped my plain sword, closed my eyes, and let mana flow down my arm. The system inside me hummed faintly, like a quiet guide. The blade shimmered faint blue, stable and steady. SHHHK. I slashed. The dummy's torso split diagonally, clean through. Not as deep as Alastair's, but clear, controlled. Gasps spread instantly. Perfect infusion. Too smooth, like he's done it for years. I stepped back, letting the murmurs swell. My expression remained calm, but inside. If only they knew I had the system babysitting me. Alastair's smirk widened. Humph. Not bad, brat. You'll keep me entertained. When the last cadet finished, Alastair raised his hand. Quiet. The hall silenced instantly. You've all seen mana infusion. Good. That's step one. But warriors who stop, they're dead men walking. He unsheathed his sword fully, the steel whispering against the scabbard. Infusion channels mana into the blade. But when your understanding of swordsmanship matures, when you reach true mastery, something greater awakens. His eyes glinted. That is aura. He raised his blade. And then, boom! A pressure swept the hall like a tidal wave. The air trembled, vibrating as if alive. Blue light burst from Alastair's blade, not coating it, but radiating outward in sheer, killing intent made manifest. Cadets staggered back, some clutching their chests, others gasping as sweat drenched their foreheads. My legs nearly buckled. This wasn't mana. This was something deeper, sharper, the distilled will of a man who had lived and bled through endless battles. Alastair swung. Boom! The air itself split. A shock wave tore across the hall, slamming into the mana dummy, and the dummy disintegrated, shredded into dust by sheer force, not even a fragment remaining. The silence that followed was absolute. Alastair rested the blade on his shoulder, grinning like a wolf. This is aura, the line between children playing with mana and warriors who carve history. Nobody dare breathe. Chase it. Struggle for it. And maybe, just maybe, one of you brats will touch it before you die. The training hall smelled faintly of scorched wood and iron dust, the air still trembling from Alastair's aura demonstration. No one dared speak too loudly, voices dropping to murmurs like churchgoers before God. All right, brats. Alastair barked, his wolfish grin cutting the silence. Playtime's over. One by one, step up. Show me how you fight, not just how you swing. His eyes gleamed dangerously as he rested his great sword against his shoulder. If you bore me, I'll kick your ass out of the circle myself. That was all the warning we got. Leon's turn. Lion Cub, you first. Alastair's gaze landed on Leon. Leon rose from the front row, his steel training sword gleaming under the crystal lights. He stepped forward with a poise that drew whispers immediately. Leon Lionheart, illegitimate son of Lionheart. They say he's not strong as his older brothers, but Lionheart style runs in his blood. Leon closed his eyes briefly, exhaling. A faint glow of fire mana shimmered around his blade, flickering steadily like a burning torch. His first strike, whoosh! A flame slash cleaved forward, cutting through the air with a fiery arc. The dummy hissed as its mithril surface charred, black smoke curling upward. Without hesitation, he followed with wind glade, his sword moving with a slicing gust, sharper than before. Sparks flew as metal groaned under the strike. Cadets murmured louder, impressed by his seamless flow. But Leon wasn't done. Lionheart sword style, Form 1. He shifted his stance, lowering his shoulders. Mana condensed along his blade, the aura of a lion pouncing. Rising Fong, SHHHK. The upward slash cut through the dummy's torso, lifting it slightly before dropping with a heavy clang. The sheer momentum was palpable. Alastair smirked, arms crossed. Oof. Controlled, steady. You got your old man's spine, but you're still holding back. Leon's lips tightened, but he bowed respectfully before returning to his seat. Michael's thoughts. Yep. Leon's still hiding his real cards. Holy Flame, Wind, even Space Affinity locked up. The future protagonist special. Still seeing it live? Damn, he's terrifyingly polished already. Edric Williams' turn. Next, Golden Boy, Alastair growled. Edric William rose. His blonde hair gleamed faintly, almost radiating under the hall lights. His blessed longsword already humming faintly with mana. Edric, House Williams' heir. He's got the light affinity, right? Like a knight out of legend. Edric didn't waste time. He raised his blade high, mana glowing pure white. Radiant slash, whoosh! A searing beam of light burst from his blade, cleaving the dummy straight across. The blinding flash left some cadets shielding their eyes. Before the fragments could fall, his form blurred. Gale strike, whoosh! Wind wrapped around his body, propelling him forward as he struck again, his sword biting deep into the dummy's chest like thunder. Gasps erupted. Two skills in one chain. He's fast, like he disappeared. Edric stepped back, exhaling, his blade still gleaming faintly. His expression was calm, but his pride glimmered in his eyes. Alastair's lips curved into something between amusement and disdain. Strong flash, strong finish. But you've got that noble arrogance in your grip. Rely less on your gifts, boy, or they'll become chains. Edric's jaw tightened, but he nodded silently and returned to his seat. Aiden Stromfang's turn. Then came the storm. Aiden leapt up from his seat with both short swords drawn, sparks already crackling around his arms. His grin was wide, reckless, feral. Oh, here we go, I muttered under my breath. He crouched low. Lightning danced across his blades, gathering into a violent hum. Storm Fong Blitz. Zayap. He dashed forward, a blur of sparks, his dual swords slashing in rapid succession. Each strike cracked against the dummy like thunder, sparks and fragments flying. Before the dummy could recover, flames erupted along his left blade. Flame drive. Boom! A fiery charge sent the dummy staggering back, smoke trailing from its torso. The room buzzed with gasps. Explosive. He's like a storm incarnate. But Aiden staggered slightly after, panting hard. His shoulders heaved, sweat dripping freely. Alastair's laughter boomed. Reckless. Sloppy. Wasteful. But good. You've got fire in your gut, boy. Don't lose it, or you'll never tame the storm. Aiden blinked, then grinned wider, as if he'd just been praised as king. Selena Valen's turn. The hall dimmed almost naturally when Selena rose. Her scythe manifested in her hands, wrought from shadow itself, curving like the crescent moon. Shadow, affinity, Valen bloodline. Dangerous. Her movements were elegant, like a dancer stepping into her stage. Shadow bind. Dark tendrils erupted from the floor, snaring the dummy's legs, locking it in place. Then she flicked her wrist. Reaper's step. FWIP. She vanished into a blur of shadows, then reappeared behind the dummy, her scythe already mid-swing. Night Veil Slash. A crescent arc of condensed shadow mana tore through the dummy, ripping it nearly in half. And yet, just as the darkness threatened to overwhelm the hall, her scythe pulsed with pale light. Purification. A burst of holy radiance flared, erasing the lingering shadows and leaving the air clear. The contrast drew silence, then awe-filled whispers. Shadow and holy? That's insane. She controls them both, like two sides of coin. Even Alastair tilted his head, stroking his chin. Balance between light and dark. Huh. Dangerous, but impressive. Don't get swallowed by either girl. Selena bowed gracefully, returning to her seat with cool composure. Elara Moonshade's turn. Finally, Elara rose. Her longbow appeared with a soft shimmer, crafted of ancient elven wood, vines woven into its frame. The cadets whispered immediately. An elf archer. They say her people never miss. Elara knocked an arrow, her green eyes calm, serene. Mana of earth gathered along the shaft. Atlantic Bowart. Form 1. Piercing root arrow. Thump. The arrow flew true, shattering through the dummy's chest plate with ease, as though the mithril armor were paper. Then, with a smooth pull, she drew again, this time splitting her mana across multiple arrows. Form 2. Earth arrow. SHHHKSHHHKSHHHK. 3 arrows loosed at once, each glowing with hardened earth essence, pinning the dummy to the wall behind it. The hall murmured, impressed to the control. But Elara wasn't done. She raised her hand, glowing faintly green. Healing Bloom. Her palm radiated gentle life mana, a soft aura blooming like petals. Even those standing near her felt their fatigue ease slightly. The cadets sighed in faint relief, whispers carrying awe. A healer, an elf with that kind of precision. No wonder the elves are feared. Alastair let out a low hum. Your aim is flawless. An elf's gift. But you lean too much on support if you want to survive war. Sharpen your arrows until they can kill, not just heal. Elara bowed slightly, serene as always, and returned to her seat. Alastair rested his great sword on his shoulder again, scanning us all. His grin returned, sharper than ever. Not bad. Not bad at all. You're still brats, but at least you're not hopeless brats. His eyes flicked to me, holding for just a second too long. And some of you will need extra breaking in. A chill ran down my spine. Great. Guess who just made it onto the Sword Hero's personal hit list? 10 minutes later, Alastair's gaze swept over us, heavy as an iron blade. All right, brats. Sitting time is over. Let's see what you're actually worth. He slammed the blunt side of his great sword into the floor. Thud. The air shivered. At first I thought it was just his aura again, but then the walls rippled. Like liquid, the training hall dissolved before our eyes. Benches sank into the ground with a low grind of stone. The dull gray floor cracked open, glowing veins of golden script spreading out in concentric circles. In seconds, the cracked tiles rearranged into polished obsidian stone, smooth as glass, etched with runes that pulsed with a heartbeat rhythm. The ceilings stretched higher, impossibly higher, until the old wooden rafters were gone, replaced by a dome of faint starlight, as though the night sky itself had been drawn down to crown us. And around the edges of the hall, translucent mana barriers rose, humming faintly, sealing us in. Whispers broke instantly. What the hell? The training hall, transformed. It's like a real dueling coliseum. Even Eric's cocky grin faltered for a second, replaced with awe. Alastair laughed, a deep booming sound that rolled like thunder. You thought this was just some academy hall? Fools! This entire chamber was built as a crucible. It bends to my command. He swung his great sword to rest lazily on his shoulder, eyes glittering with amusement. This is your dueling ground. No running. No excuses. Only strength will decide if you stand tall or eat dirt. The pressure of his words pressed down on us, thick enough that even breathing felt heavier. Yet beneath that pressure, I felt something stir in my chest. Excitement. So this is what a real battleground feels like. A place built to measure worth. Alastair's gaze cut across the rows, finally stopping on Leon and Eric. He jabbed a finger toward the circle's glowing center. You two, step forward. Show me if your cub's worth raising, or if you're fit only for the butcher's block. The runes beneath the floor pulsed once, resonating with his voice. The first match had been chosen, and the arena of the sword hero demanded blood and fire. The arena's runes flared once more, forming a glowing circle at its center. Leon and Eric stepped inside, steel practice, swords in hand. The tension was thick enough to slice. Cadets leaned forward in their seats behind the shimmering mana barrier, whispers buzzing like flies. Leon, the outcaster from the Lionheart bloodline. And Eric, he's the one who's been stirring trouble since the entrance exams. I bet Eric takes this. I lean back in my seat, arms crossed. No matter how this goes, the result will ignite more rivalries. Alastair's booming voice cut through the noise. Begin. Eric grinned like a predator, his stance loose, blade tilted casually. His golden eyes gleamed with arrogance. Leon, in contrast, tightened his grip, his posture textbook, Lionheart sword style's ready stance, both feet firm, blade slightly angled forward. Try not to cry when I break your pride, Eric mocked before exploding forward. Clang! Steel shrieked against steel as Eric's first strike landed. Sparks flew under the manadome. His blows came fast, reckless but furious, each swing powered by raw muscle and wind-infused mana. Wind gale! Eric twisted mid-swing, a sudden burst of air exploding from his blade, forcing Leon back a step. Leon dug his heel into the rune-carved floor, raising his blade just in time. Lionheart sword style, Form 1, Rising Fong. Shrine. His blade cut upward like a lion's pounce, knocking Eric's strike away and throwing sparks between them. The cadets gasped as the clash reverberated against the mana barriers. Eric laughed, not even winded. Not bad, but you're too stiff. He lunged again, weaving wind around his legs, his dash quick as a blur. Gale strike. The impact rattled Leon's guard, forcing him back 3 steps. His boots screeched against the smooth obsidian floor. Leon's jaw tightened. His mana flared, faint traces of flame dancing around his blade. He slashed down with force. Form 2, Crimson Fong. Boom! A downward strike crashed against Eric's blade, flames cracking outward. Eric snarled, teeth gritted, barely holding the block. The mana barrier rippled from shockwave. Eric shoved him back, a grin splitting his face. That all, Lion Cub? He drew mana again, wind swirling violently around his sword. Then with a sudden pivot, he unleashed. Gale Storm, a flurry of rapid thrusts, each carrying a burst of air pressure, like invisible bullets pelting Leon from all sides. Dee-dee-dee-dang. Leon staggered. His guard shook. A shallow cut appeared along his cheek as one thrust grazed past. Cadets roared from behind the barrier. Eric's overwhelming him. Leon can't keep up. He's too rigid. Even I frowned, analyzing. Eric's raw aggression is breaking rhythm. Leon won't last unless something changes. Eric's aura blazed with arrogance as his blade glowed with a faint golden hue. Light mana wrapped around his steel, forming a thin radiance that shimmered like the dawn. Watch closely, Leon. Eric sneered. This is the difference between bloodlines and true talent. With a fluid twist, his blade cut downward. Light arts, radiant slash. A blazing crescent of light erupted from his sword, tearing across the arena like a searing blade of sunlight. Shum! Leon braced, slamming his sword into the ground and pouring mana into his guard. Flames burst outward, colliding with the radiant slash. The clash detonated in a shower of sparks, a deafening crack splitting the air. Boom! Smoke rolled across the arena floor. Leon staggered out of it, one knee nearly buckling. His arms trembled from the force, his breathing ragged. But Eric wasn't done. Too slow. he barked, his form blurring as wind exploded under his feet. Gale strike. Crack. He shot forward like a bullet, sword drawn back. Leon barely raised his blade in time. Clang. The impact threw him back several steps, his boots screeching across the smooth obsidian floor until his spine smacked against the mana barrier. Cadets shouted from his seats. Eric's overwhelming him. Leon can't breathe. He's finished. Eric's golden eyes gleamed with superiority. He twirled his sword once, light gathering again. Like arts, flash slash. His body vanished in a burst of speed, a blinding arc of light slicing through the space Leon had occupied. For a moment, everyone thought it was over. But Leon ducked at the last second, the blade of light screaming overhead and slamming into the barrier instead, where it sparked harmlessly against the protective dome. Che! Eric clicked his tongue, annoyed. Leon's chest heaved, his fingers tightening desperately on his sword. His flames flickered weakly, the heat unstable. I can't match his speed, his power's overwhelming. Eric advanced again, spinning his blade, confidence oozing. You fought well for a cub, but I'll show you what real pride looks like. He lunged, but then it happened. As Eric dashed forward, pouring both wind and light into his speed, one of the arena's runes flared unusually bright beneath his boot. The sudden surge of energy made his footing falter for just a fraction of a second, his blade, arm swinging just a little too wide, his momentum leaning forward past balance. A tiny, almost imperceptible error. But at this level, in this duel, it was fatal. Leon's eyes sharpened. The lion within roared awake. Now, mana surged through his veins, flame erupting along his sword's edge. He pivoted hard, channeling every last shred of strength into a desperate counter. Lionheart sword style, Form 1, Rising Fong. Shri Yang. His blade cut upward with flawless timing, catching Eric's weapon at the hilt. The sheer momentum of Eric's overextension carried the sword upward, torn from his grip. The weapon spun in the air, clattering across the arena floor. Clang, clang, clang. Eric froze, eyes wide, hand empty. Leon stepped in, sweat dripping, his chest heaving like a man on his last breath. He thrust the tip of his flame-kissed blade at Eric's throat, voice hoarse but resolute. It's my win. Aftermath of the luck. Silence. Then the arena erupted with gasps and shouts. He disarmed him. Leon actually turned it around. Eric had him on the ropes the whole time. Gasps and whispers rippled through the stands. Eric's chest rose and fell heavily, golden eyes widening with disbelief before narrowing to sharp slits. His knuckles whitened as he retrieved his blade, but the glowing barrier had already declared his defeat. Leon staggered back, lowering his sword. His breath was ragged, sweat dripping from his chin. Even he looked dazed, as though stunned by the result. I leaned forward in my seat, narrowing my eyes. No, Leon didn't win. He survived by the skin of his teeth. One misstep from Eric, and he capitalized on it. Sheer dumb luck. But to everyone watching, it looks like the Lionheart rise toppled a giant. Alastair's voice broke through the tension, cold and uncompromising. Barely passable. Leon, you seized victory, but don't delude yourself. You relied on luck, and luck alone. In war, luck runs out. Leon dipped his head respectfully, though the twitch of his lips betrayed both relief and pride. Eric turned sharply, striding back toward the benches. His face was calm, too calm, but as he passed, I caught it. A whisper, low and venomous, escaping clenched teeth. This isn't over. Leon, I'll burn that smile off your face next time. The air around him seemed to tighten, mana prickling faintly before he forced it down. He walked stiffly to his seat, sitting in silence, jaw locked. Eric retrieved his sword silently, golden eyes burning with humiliation as he stalked back to his seat. And then Alastair's gaze swept the arena, locking on me. To be continued. Next match, Michael versus? The atmosphere shifted instantly. Point 8. Cadets were still murmuring, some sneaking glances at Leon's stiff back as he returned to his seat, others stealing side eyes at Eric, who looked annoyingly calm despite his victory. But then, Alastair's gaze snapped toward me. Michael stepped forward. My body tensed instinctively. His tone wasn't just an order. It was a challenge, a call dragged from the throat of a lion, testing if another beast dared answer. The hall went quiet. Too quiet. Every eye turned toward me. Some were filled with curiosity. Others, resentment. And a few, barely concealed hunger, as if waiting to see the rank one crumble under pressure. I rose from my seat in the third row, the scrape of the chair legs sounding deafening in the silence. My steps echoed against the arena's stone floor. T-seat, and here I thought I'd get to spectate a little longer. I exhaled slowly. My heartbeat was steady, but my mind was sharp, running through countless combat scenarios. This wasn't just a spar. This was my first public fight in Class A, the stage where reputations were forged or shattered. Alastair's grin widened as he watched me approach. His eyes weren't just observing, they were dissecting, measuring me down to the bone. Good, he rumbled. The cub who barked at the ceremony finally bares his teeth. I stepped onto the cracked stone circle. The heat from Leon's earlier flames still radiated faintly from the floor, but it only sharpened my focus. Alastair turned, his voice booming, and his opponent, Aiden Stormfang. Aiden's entrance. Aiden stood immediately, his dual short swords strapped at his hips, clinking as he rose. His confident smirk was already in place, lightning practically crackling in his gaze. Finally. He rolled his shoulders, then strode down with the casual arrogance of someone who lived for this exact moment. Guess I get the honor of knocking down our shiny new rank one. The cadets roared with whispers. Aiden? Oh, this is going to be wild. He's reckless, but crazy strong. Can Michael really handle him? This isn't a magic duel. It's pure combat. Rank 1 or not. Aiden's an absolute beast with blades. Ren leaned back, smirking from his seat. Well, this will be fun to watch. Eric only narrowed his eyes slightly, analyzing me like he had Leon. Leon, still burning from his win, crossed his arms and muttered, Don't lose pathetically. If rank 1 falls here, then your speech at the ceremony was nothing but hot air. Lovely encouragement. Aiden hopped onto the stage with a flourish, both short swords drawn. Sparks of static danced faintly along the steel as he twirled them once, ending in a reversed grip. He pointed one blade toward me, grin wide and sharp. Try to hold back, Michael. I don't want excuses when you're lying on the floor. I raised an eyebrow, resting my hand on the hilt of my practice sword. You talk a lot for someone about to lose. The words slipped out naturally, earning me a chorus of gasps and a few muffled laughs from the cadets. Aiden's grin twitched wider, almost feral. Alastair's booming laugh cut across the hall. Now this is what I wanted. 2 cubs, 1 stage, no fear in their eyes. He extended a hand, fingers spread like a judge about to slam the gavel. Match 2. Begin. Dong. The arena flared with runes once more, humming with mana. Lightning crackled faintly around Aiden as he crouched low, dual blades ready. His muscles coiled, his body practically vibrating with explosive energy. Across from him, I drew my training sword in a single smooth motion, the weight familiar in my hands. The tension sharpened. Every cadet leaned forward, breaths held, eyes fixed. This wasn't just a spar. It was the clash everyone had been waiting for. Begin. High voltage boom. Aiden exploded forward like a lightning bolt unleashed. His twin short swords carved silver arcs through the air, the floor beneath his boots cracking as his mana-infused muscles propelled him in a blur. The cadets gasped. He was already at my throat before some could even blink. Clang! Steel screamed as his right blade struck my guard. The sheer force sent a shock down my arm, the weight of his momentum rattling my bones. But his left sword came immediately after, diagonal slash aimed at my ribs. Fast, too fast for most E-ranks. I pivoted my foot with a subtle Tai Chi step, redirecting the strike across the curve of my blade. Instead of clashing head-on, I guided his momentum, letting the attack slip past harmlessly. Aiden's eyes flashed with excitement. You can keep up. His knee snapped upward, A brutal Calipata style knee strike straight for my gut. Thud. I dropped my elbow sharply, blocking the blow with a crunch of bone against bone, my body twisting with practiced fluidity. My free hand lashed out, palm strike aimed at his chin. He tilted his head, just in time, the strike grazing his jaw. His grin widened. Not bad. High voltage zap. Sparks erupted from his blades as he channeled lightning mana into them, the crackle of energy filling the arena. With a roar, he unleashed a whirlwind of slashes, each one faster, heavier, charged with mana infusion. Clang, 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 clang. Steel rang like furious bells as I parried, redirected, deflected. My sword danced in arcs that weren't just strikes, they were flow. Each block absorbed his ferocity. Each step repositioned me by inches, keeping balance in chaos. The cadets leaned forward, eyes wide. He's keeping up with Aiden's storm? Those movements, he's not just swinging. That's form. It looks almost like a martial artist using a sword. Aiden snarled, his lightning aura sparking hotter. He spun low, one blade sweeping in my legs, the other arcing high in a fake overhead slash. Shooing. I bent backward, iron bridge, motion saving my head from his top strike. His lower blade cut close, slicing my uniform pants, but I shifted my weight onto one hand and twisted my legs, kicking upward. Wham! Aiden blocked with his crossed swords, skidding back 2 steps, boots dragging across the stone. He licked his lip, exhilarated. Damn, you fight like some old monk with a blade. I rose smoothly, sword leveled. Funny, you fight like a thunderstorm with no direction. Perfect then, he grinned savagely. Let's see if your calm can hold against a storm. High voltage collision. He surged again, but this time with Storm Fong Blitz, his dual blades multiplying into a flurry, each strike faster than the last. Sparks trailed every movement, the arena flashing with arcs of blue-white lightning. Clang! Spark! Boom! I deflected the first, redirected the second, let the third whistle past, but the fourth carved across my shoulder, jolting me with static pain. My teeth clenched. TCH. He's pushing harder. Another slash. I barely caught it. His grin widened, his speed increasing, his blades becoming a storm. The cadets were on their feet now. This is insane. Aiden's on fire. No, look. Michael's not breaking. Michael's turn. My quantum analysis mind ticked like clockwork. Every slash, every twitch of his shoulders, every shift in his footwork. I mapped it, calculated it, predicted where the next strike would come. And then, I saw it. The opening. Dong. I shifted into a low stance, sword sheathed at my hip like a coiled serpent. Aiden came screaming forward, lightning flaring across both blades. I exhaled long and calm. Mana surged. My blade flickered. And then, shying. One step. A fluid arc. My sword slashed upward in a swift, precise cut. Not just swordsmanship, but redirect, sharp explosiveness married into one flowing strike. Crack! His right blade was knocked skyward. The shockwave forced his left slash wide open. I stepped in, blade already rotating downward. Bam! The flat of my sword slammed into his chest. The impact blasted him back across the stage, sparks sputtering as his lightning faltered. He crashed on his back, coughing air from his lungs. The class roared in shock. Holy crap! He stopped Aiden's storm mid-combo. What kind of swordsmanship was that? But Aiden wasn't done. Ha! Ha ha! His laugh was wild as he dragged himself to his feet, eyes gleaming like a predator finally finding prey worth killing. Finally, someone who won't break after a few swings. He raised his blades again. Lightning gathered thicker, hotter, wrapping his arms in crackling light. The very air smelled of ozone. I'm not done yet, Michael. Not even close. Alastair's eyes narrowed, his grin wolfish as he muttered under his breath. This cub, both of them, they're already fighting beyond rank. High voltage lightning and fire. Aiden's mana erupted. Lightning sparks crawled across his arms while his short swords ignited with flames that twisted and merged with the crackling arcs. The temperature in the training hall shot up instantly. Sweat prickled across the cadet's brows, and the sharp tang of ozone filled the air. Is he using two affinities at once? That's reckless. He'll burn his mana core out. But Aiden didn't care. His grin was feral, eyes blazing with battle fever. Michael, he roared, lightning and fire flaring in harmony. Try stopping this. He vanished and reappeared in front of me, twin blades crashing down like twin thunderbolts wrapped in fire. Boom! The ground beneath us fractured, a shockwave rolling out across the arena. Cadets in the front rows staggered from the force, shielding their faces. I skidded backward, arms straining as my sword caught both blades. Heat scorched my skin, sparks seared my uniform, and my boots dragged deep lines into the stone floor. Shit, his raw output doubled. No, tripled. Aiden pressed harder, laughing like a maniac. What happened to your comm, huh? Where's that monk act now? Flames surged along his blades. Lightning crawled into my sword guard, jolting pain through my bones. His strength was like a storm breaking through my defenses. If I keep this up, I'll be crushed. My teeth clenched. My mana burned inside me like a caged beast. Tisish, guess I can't keep it hidden forever. I closed my eyes for half a heartbeat, drew in a slow breath, and whispered, barely audible, "Aura holder." Thrum. A pulse rippled outward from me, low and deep like the growl of some ancient beast awakening. My sword hummed. Mana bled from my body, then condensed, wrapping around the blade in a visible shimmer. No longer pure mana, but something denser, heavier, alive. Diamond with it at aura. The air trembled. My blade seemed longer, sharper, brighter, its edge radiating killing intent. Aiden's feral grin faltered. What? The cadet's gasps echoed like thunder. Is that aura? No way. That's impossible. Only high rankers can even sense aura, let alone use it. But Alastair's reaction was the most chilling. His eyes widened, the unshakable sword hero suddenly frozen. His voice came out low, disbelieving. That's aura manifestation. At E rank, his fist clenched, and for the first time the hall saw the legendary swordsman rattled. I opened my eyes, calm, focused. The storm around me fell silent in my mind. My sword, now wreathed in shimmering silver aura, slid free from Aiden's crushing dual strike. Shine. In a single smooth motion, I redirected his blades aside, the aura edge slicing the flames apart like paper. The lightning sparks fizzled as though smothered by invisible pressure. Aiden staggered, eyes wide. What the? I stepped in. Bam! The hilt of my sword slammed into his chest like a battering ram, aura flaring with the impact. He flew back, skidding across the arena floor, his weapons clattering. The hall went dead silent. I straightened, my aura-wrapped sword humming softly in my grip, its glow reflecting in stunned faces around me. The whispers began. Did he use aura? At E rank? That's not human. Who the hell is he? The moment Michael's blade ignited with that strange, living light, the hall froze. Even the hum of mana in the training arena seemed to pause, as though the world itself was holding its breath. Leon's eyes widened first. His hand instinctively tightened around his training sword. Aura, at E rank, he whispered, disbelief in his voice. Yet his gaze wasn't one of envy. If anything, it was respect. Michael, you're already carrying such strength. But if you can do it, then so can I. I'll catch up, even if it takes everything. Beside him, Selena's hands clutched against her chest. Her lips parted in wonder, her eyes glimmering with awe. So bright. She breathed softly, the glow of Michael's aura reflecting in her gentle eyes. To her, it wasn't just power, it was a symbol. He really is different, like a knight stepping out of a storybook. For the first time, she felt her heart race with a mix of admiration and something deeper, something she couldn't name yet. Across the aisle, Alara's gaze was far sharper. Her normally composed face tightened as her analytical mind spun in circles. No, that's not possible. Aura wasn't something you stumbled into. It took mastery, years of discipline, relentless refinement. And Michael had made it look effortless. Her cold eyes narrowed. Just who are you, Michael? A pretender cloaked in secrets. Or something much more dangerous. A bark of laughter suddenly echoed. Lyra's. She slapped her knee, her grin wide and blazing with fire. Huh, I knew it. You've been hiding something. Her eyes flared with competitive fire, her fists tightening with excitement. Good. This means I finally have someone worth chasing down. Don't think you'll stay ahead of me forever, Michael. Next time, I'm going to burn brighter than that pretty aura of yours. Her chest burned with a mixture of envy and exhilaration, but she welcomed the feeling. This was what she lived for, someone to rival, someone to fight. From the corner, Maria's lips curved into a chilling smile, her eyes glinting like shards of glass. A mask, she whispered, her voice dripping with venom. To think he wears it so well. Aura, at E rank? Please, no one is that miraculous. This is just another illusion, another lie to make us gape in awe. Yet even as she said it, something twisted deep inside her chest. A faint, bitter envy she refused to acknowledge. If Michael truly was real, then her entire philosophy, her entire armor of cynicism, might begin to crack. And that terrified her more than she would ever admit. And then there was Chris, arms crossed, leaning back against his seat. He let out a long breath. What the hell, man? He smirked, shaking his head. Aura, at E rank. You can just keep things simple, huh? But unlike the others, there was no venom, no bitterness. Only a quiet admiration, mixed with resolve. You worked your ass off for this, didn't you? Fine. If this is the bar you're setting, then the rest of us better well push harder. Silence settled over the training hall once more. Every cadet, whether filled with awe, jealousy, fear, or fire, stared at Michael. And Michael, standing at the center of it all with his blade humming in living aura, could feel their eyes piercing into him. The weight of expectation, the sting of doubt, the heat of rivalry, all converging onto his back. For better or worse, he had just stepped into the spotlight he could never escape. Flat on the ground, chest heaving, Aiden stared at me, shock painted across his face. Then slowly, his lips curled into a grin. Ha! Ha ha ha! He sat up, clutching his chest where the blow landed. You bastard! You were hiding that all along. His laughter was raw, wild, yet not angry. Instead, his eyes burned with renewed hunger. This is perfect. You're not just calm, you're a monster. Alastair finally spoke, his deep voice cutting through the stunned silence like steel. Michael, his tone was heavy with disbelief, yet laced with a strange, sharp excitement. Do you even understand what you just done? All eyes snapped to me. I sheathed my sword calmly, letting the aura fade. My answer was simple, carried in a steady voice. Enough to win. The class erupted. Cracks marred the floor where Aiden's fire and lightning had struck, and thin wisps of smoke curled upward in ghostly trails. The sparring session was over, but the cadets weren't leaving yet. They stood frozen, whispers buzzing like an angry hive. Did you see that? He cut through Aiden's flame strike like it was nothing. No, forget that. Did you see his blade? That wasn't mana. That was aura at E rank. It's not possible. I sat back on the bench, towel draped over my shoulders, pretending to ignore the stares drilling holes into me. My hand still tingled faintly from the conversion. Aura, the thing I was supposed to keep hidden, and yet here I was flashing it in front of the entire class like a neon sign. Damn it. I want to keep a low profile, but Aiden forced my hand. My gaze flicked to the swordsman in question. Aiden sat a few meters away, still panting, but his grin hadn't faded. His wild eyes met mine, and he gave me a look that said round 2 is inevitable. Alastair's booming voice cut through the chatter like a blade. That's enough, brats. Instant silence. He stood at the center of the hall, arms folded, his shadow looming long across the cracked floor. His presence alone was enough to force the cadets to swallow their whispers. Today was just the start. Some of you impressed me. Some of you disappointed me. And one of you, his eyes, sharp as an eagle's, landed squarely on me. Broke every damned law of common sense I've known in 40 years of wielding a blade. A ripple of shock went through the room. Some cadets gasped. Others turned toward me like I'd just sprouted horns. My jaw tightened. Class dismissed. Alastair barked suddenly, his tone brooking no argument. Go cool your heads, patch your bruises, and remember this. The battlefield doesn't care for excuses. Only results. The cadets obeyed quickly, filing out in groups, still whispering in hushed tones. Aiden walked out last, glancing over his shoulder at me with a sharp grin before disappearing through the doorway. One by one, the hall emptied, until only Alastair and I remained. The sword hero turned slowly, the weight of his gaze pressing down like a mountain. Michael, I straightened, towel slipping from my shoulders. Yes, instructor. His boots echoed against the cracked stone as he approached, stopping just a step away. Up close, his sheer presence was suffocating. A man who had cut down monsters for decades, whose every scar told a story. Do you even understand what you just showed them? He asked quietly. His voice was no longer booming, but low, heavy, edged with disbelief. My mouth went dry. Aura, a manifestation, I admitted. Alastair's eyes narrowed. Aura manifestation is something even seasoned A-ranks struggle to touch. B-ranks can barely sense it. Yet you, his hand twitched toward my sword. You wielded it cleanly, with intent. At E-rank, he leaned closer, his voice dropping further. That shouldn't be possible. Silence stretched between us. I could feel his scrutiny peeling me apart, weighing every flicker of mana in my body. I forced a calm smile, though my heart hammered. Maybe I just got lucky. Alastair's lips twitched, something between a snarl and a smirk. Luck doesn't forge aura, boy. Resolve does. Spirit does. And that, his eyes gleamed, sharp with something dangerous. That makes you either the greatest fraud I've ever seen, or the kind of monster the world hasn't birthed in centuries. His words hung heavy in the empty hall. I swallowed hard. My throat was dry, but my voice stayed steady. Then I'll just have to prove I'm the latter. Alastair laughs, loud and booming. Huh, you little bastard, you just shattered common sense. Aura, at your level, either the gods blessed you, or you're the devil's child. I like it. He turns serious. But don't get cocky. Aura's a weapon that eats the weak alive if they lean on it. Master it, or it will destroy you. For a long moment, Alastair simply stared at me, his gaze like steel pressed to my neck. Then, a low chuckle escaped him, rough and genuine. You've got guts, I'll give you that. He stepped back, the suffocating weight of his presence easing just a fraction. Fine, keep your secrets. But know this. He raised a single finger, his expression turning grave. Secrets always bleed out in battle. And when they do, the world will either crown you or bury you. His cloak swirled as he turned away, striding toward the exit. Tomorrow, we train again. Don't be late, brat. And with that, the sword hero left me standing alone in the fractured training hall, his words echoing in my chest like a second heartbeat. An invitation. My steps slowed as my thoughts tangled into knots. This isn't how the story was supposed to go. That moment, Alastair choosing his successor, it should have belonged to Leon. Second year. After his swordsmanship matured enough to rival nobles, he'd finally catch Alastair's eye. That was how it went. But instead, here I was. Aura revealed too early. Spotlight fixed on me, and Alastair already extending a hand. If he truly offers me discipleship, what do I answer? My heart pounded. To accept meant protection, power, legitimacy within the academy, but also meant stepping further and further away from the story I thought I knew. My lips pressed into a thin line as I walked. The plot is already falling apart, I muttered under my breath. And with that weight pressing down on my chest, I turned toward the one class nobody in their right mind cared to attend. The Rune Exploration Study Hall was as dead as the history books made it sound. Dust coated the wooden door. A faint cobweb stretched proudly across the frame. Even the placard, Rune Exploration, Instructor Harry Stonerick, was half faded, the paint peeling like an old scar. I pushed the door open. Creak. Inside, the room was, well, tragic. Only 3 desks weren't broken. Rune diagrams were chalked half-heartedly on the board, and in the corner sat a lone man, hunched over a desk piled with ancient tomes. Professor Harry Stonerick. He had unkempt brown hair sticking up like a bird's nest, ink stains all over his sleeves, and a pair of round glasses so thick they could probably block an arrow. He looked less like an instructor and more like the kind of eccentric uncle families try not to talk about at reunions. He didn't notice me until the floor creaked under my step. His head jerked up, his tired gaze locked on me, then widened so abruptly his glasses nearly slid off his nose. You, he pointed a quivering finger at me, as though I were some kind of long-lost heir. I inclined my head politely. Professor, I'm here to register for Rune Exploration Studies. There was a silence. A long, long silence. Then, what? His shout nearly knocked dust off the ceiling. He shot up from his chair, knocking over a pile of books. Huh. Ha ha. Nice joke. Very good. Rune studies as a punishment. Is it? Tell me, did the other instructors put you up to this? Detention? Hazing? Tell me the truth. I'm not joking. My tone was flat. My expression didn't waver. I'm here for this class. For a moment, he just blinked at me. His mouth opened and closed like a fish. Then, like a dam bursting, he exploded into motion. He zipped around the desk, circling me so fast I almost took a step back. His eyes sparkled like he just spotted a rare gem. Truly? Truly, truly, truly. You want to join my class? His voice cracked with a mixture of disbelief and joy. Yes, teacher. The word had barely left my lips when he froze. His entire body trembled. And then, finally, he leapt into the air like a man 30 years younger, spinning once before landing with both fists clenched in victory. I stood there blinking. What the hell am I witnessing? This day will go down in history. Write it in the annals. Inscribe it into the stones. Another class, say, student in Rune Studies. Another, my brow furrowed slightly. But the professor didn't hear me. He was too busy dashing to his desk, dragging out a crumpled parchment. He shoved it into my hands with trembling fingers. Here, sign this. Quick, before you change your mind, before someone steals you away to stupid combat arts or elemental enhancement. Quick, quick. Suppressing a sigh, I scrawled my name. The moment my pen left the page, Harry snatched the paper with lightning speed. Then, with the seriousness of a priest handling a sacred relic, he sprinted to the desk, knelt, unlocked a rune-sealed drawer with an elaborate mana password, and placed the paper inside as though laying a newborn to rest. When he closed the drawer, his shoulders quivered. I could have sworn I saw tears in his eyes. He turned back to me, his face twisted in a bizarre mix of glee and solemnity. Michael, I promise you, you won't regret this. One day, the entire academy will kneel to the power of runes. You'll see. They'll all see. They called me mad, but now. He threw his head back and laughed, arms spread wide. I have disciples. Finally, his voice cracked. Finally, another believer. My years of ridicule, the laughter of my colleagues, the pitying looks of those arrogant combat instructors. They will all burn in the flames of truth. Ha! Ha ha ha! I crossed my arms. Professor, you're making me reconsider. His head snapped up. No, don't. You signed already. It's official. You can't escape me now. Great. Just what I wanted to hear. Trying not to sigh aloud, I kept my expression neutral. If I'm the first student in years, why did you say another Class A student earlier? That stopped him cold. For a moment, Harry froze, the joy draining from his face. He adjusted his glasses, blinking rapidly. Ah, yes, the other one. He trailed off, muttering under his breath. Strange child, that one. Rarely attends. Brilliant, yes, but unsettling. Like someone staring through you rather than at you. I narrow my eyes. Who? He waved a hand dramatically, as though brushing away smoke. No names. Confidentiality. Teacher's honor. But I caught the twitch at the corner of his lips, the way his fingers fiddled with the edge of his robes. He knew exactly who it was. Fine. I'll let it drop for now. Pressing too much would only make him dig deeper into his theatrics. I pinched the bridge of my nose. What have I gotten myself into? Your schedule will be sent to your academy ID, he added quickly, straightening his posture as if remembering he was supposed to be a professional. His voice dropped an octave, suddenly smooth and serious. Welcome, student Michael. He nodded, satisfied, then instantly broke character again, bouncing on his heels like a teenager. I still can't believe it. A Class A prodigy, choosing this over flashy fireballs and sword swings. History is being made. I pinched the bridge of my nose. I'll take my leave now. Yes, go eat, sleep, whatever you young geniuses do. But remember, soon you'll thank me. Runes will change everything. The dungeons, the world, your very soul. Wah! His laughter echoed off the empty walls as I slipped out of the classroom. Then the mask cracked immediately. He clapped his hands together and spun around in a little circle, muttering, he signed it. He actually signed it. Oh gods, I need to mark the date. What day is it? Where's my notebook? No, where's my wine? No, focus, Harry, focus. I quietly backed toward the door, already regretting my life choices. Still, despite his lunacy, I endured, because if my memory was correct, runes weren't just eccentric nonsense. They were the key to dungeons, to survival, and I would need every edge I could get. The academy cafeteria wasn't a place, it was an ecosystem. A sprawling hall with high-arched ceilings, glowing crystal chandeliers, and walls enchanted to reflect a shifting sky. It felt less like a place to eat and more like an indoor kingdom. The smell of roasted meats, baked breads, sweet pastries, and fried snacks hit me the moment I stepped in, making my empty stomach growl like a beast. But the noise, gods, the noise. Hundreds of students gathered in groups, voices overlapping into a chaotic symphony of gossip, laughter, and clashing personalities. Some tables were dominated by noble heirs in silken uniforms, others by warrior brats comparing battle scars, and a few by scholarly types buried under scrolls. And me? I was alone. Even though I had briefly interacted with Leon and Selena at the Supreme Hall, calling that friendship was pushing it. At most, we were acquaintances bound by circumstance. Walking in here, solo, only reminded me of my outsider status. This is fine, I told myself. A lone wolf eats more pizza. I headed straight to the counter, where a middle-aged staff member in a spotless apron greeted me with professional politeness. What would you like, sir? A large pizza with extra cheese, I replied instantly. The staff raised a brow, scribbled the order on a floating note, and said, wait a moment, please. That will cost 399 arcade points. Without hesitation, I raised my wrist, letting the Academy-issued smartwatch project its holographic interface. My name and current standing flickered into the air. Michael, Year 1 student, rank 1. Available points, 1,000,000 plus. The staffer's polite demeanor cracked for a second. His eyes widened, lips parting in shock as he stammered, "Es, sir." Rank 1. A few heads nearby turned. I resisted the urge to groan. Great. Exactly the kind of attention I didn't want. The staff quickly recovered, forcing a professional smile as he explained, Rank 1 students of each year receive a 20% discount on all academy purchases, including food. So your total comes to... He trailed off, his eyes darting again to the massive number floating in my balance. Far less than you'll ever need to worry about. Good, I said flatly. Keep the discount. I'll be a regular. Transaction done. I picked up my tray, pizza steaming, cheese melting over the edges, and scanned the hall for a seat. Clusters of nobles laughed loudly in one corner, their table piled with extravagant dishes. Battle maniacs slammed tankards together, already treating lunch like a tavern brawl. Even the quiet groups were filled with scholars muttering over rune theory or alchemy diagrams. And then there was me, a single figure carrying enough food for three, weaving through the sea of social kingdoms like an uninvited ghost. I found a spot near the edge of the hall, far from the main groups, and sat down. The first bite of pizza nearly melted my soul. For one blissful moment, everything, the stares, the gossip, the overwhelming weight of being Michael, faded into gooey cheese and crispy crust. If survival wasn't on the line, I could retire into this pizza. That's when I heard it. A group of first years at the next table, voices buzzing with excitement. The freshers' ball's coming up. Yeah, the seniors are organizing it again. You have to bring a partner, right? For the dance. But then I overheard it. The freshers' ball this weekend. The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. I froze, mid-bite, my gaze flicking toward the group of first years at the next table. They were laughing and chatting, oblivious to the way my skin crawled. Freshers' ball. In the original timeline, that event wasn't just a party. It was the beginning of bloodshed. A demon infiltrated the academy, summoned by a demon worshiper within the academy, and unleashed chaos right in the heart of the celebration. Students died, promising talents fell, and the first glimpse of the true enemy emerged. I knew the pattern. I knew the script. And now that I disrupted the plot, so much aura Holder revealed early, Alastair's attention drifting toward me instead of Leon. Who knew if the timeline would hold at all? Would the demon still appear at the ball? Would Maria Frostheart still play a role? Would more die because of my interference? The night that claimed the lives of side characters, good people, and twisted Maria Frostheart's path forever. I clenched my fist under the table. I set the slice of pizza down, appetite fading into a knot in my stomach. The cafeteria noise blurred into the background, a dull roar behind the pounding of my thoughts. This world isn't waiting for me. The events are coming whether I want them to or not. And the freshers' ball was just the first spark. The day I awakened my system wasn't glorious. It wasn't divine or epic or written in the stars. It was just humiliating. I still remember the training yard that afternoon, the clang of steel, the roars of older cadets sparring, the scornful laughter when my wooden sword slipped from my grip again and clattered across the dirt. Pathetic. Are you sure you're even a Lionheart? He's nothing like Emily. I picked up the sword with trembling hands. My palms were raw. Blisters dotted my fingers. My chest heaved as I raised the blade again. But my opponent, a boy barely older than me, already E-rank, smirked and stepped forward. His sword was polished, his stance perfect. Again, I muttered, setting my feet. The spar lasted 3 seconds. His strike smashed through my guard, slammed into my ribs, and sent me sprawling in the dirt. Dust filled my mouth, my ears ringing from the impact. Laughter rippled from the sidelines. Illegitimate trash. He thinks he can stand next to Emily Lionheart? What a joke. Emily. Of course. Always Emily. The prodigy. The golden daughter. The pride of Lionheart. And me? I wasn't even recognized as my father's son. I was a shadow, a reminder of a scandal, a mistake. But when I looked up from the dirt that day, just for a heartbeat, I thought I saw someone watching me. Someone I couldn't name. And then, ding, a sound rang in my head. Sharp, metallic, like a bell struck inside my skull. I froze. What was that? No one else seemed to hear it. The cadets walked away, bored. My opponent muttered something about wasting his time and left. But the voice remained. Cold, mechanical, initializing, system link established. Welcome, Leon Lionheart. My mouth went dry. What the hell? System functions unlocked. Function 1. Store, purchase items, skills, and resources. Function 2. Quest, complete challenges to earn system coins. I blinked. Once. Twice. Is this some kind of joke? But the text hovered in my vision, clear as the sun overhead. A system, like in the novels, like in the games. And it was talking to me. All right, I whispered, half crazed, half terrified. If you're real, show me something. Tutorial quest generated. Quest. First step. Condition. Defeat a wooden training dummy within 10 minutes. Reward. 10 system coins. A dummy. I almost laughed. Almost cried. Even the system thought I was pathetic. Still, I staggered to my feet. My ribs ached, my pride was shattered, but something deep inside me, the part of me that still wanted to prove I was more than Emily's shadow, burned. I picked up my wooden sword. The dummy stood in the corner of the yard. Stupid thing. I'd struck it 100 times before, and each time I felt weaker than the last. But this time was different. Rising Fong. I whispered, forcing my body into the first form of the Lionheart sword style. The blade swept upward. Awkward. Shaky. Critical strike registered. The dummy's head snapped back, splinters flying. I blinked. Wait, that actually worked. Quest complete. Reward, 10 coins. A small pouch icon appeared in my vision, glowing faintly. I opened the store instinctively. And then, my breath caught. Weapons, armors, elixirs, techniques, all listed with prices I couldn't begin to afford. But they were there, and for the first time in my life, I felt possibility. Not despair, not rejection, possibility. Special reward, holy flame affinity acquired. The words burned brighter than fire, and suddenly, heat surged through my veins. Not scorching, not painful, but warm, alive. I gasped, stumbling, as sparks flickered across my fingers. Tiny embers danced on my palm, shimmering gold instead of red. Holy flame, something no one in my family had ever awakened. I stared at my hand, trembling. For years, I had been nothing. The bastard son, the weakling, the mistake. But now, I had something Emily didn't. A secret, a fire that was mine alone. I spent the rest of the evening alone in the training yard, striking the dummy again and again, each swing punctuated by ragged breaths and whispered curses. Rising Fong, crushing claw. My blade sparked with tiny flickers of flame. Weak, unstable, but mine. Every time I struck, the system chimed in. Form execution, 60%. Error in stance, adjust right foot. Correction applied. Power increased by 5%. It was like having a teacher in my head. A cold, unyielding teacher who didn't care about my feelings, only about results. And for once, I didn't mind, because it was teaching me. Not Emily, not the noble cadets. Me. By the time night fell, I collapsed in the dirt, my body aching, my sword slipping from my fingers. But I was smiling. For the first time in years, I was smiling. Because I wasn't worthless anymore. Because I had a path. Because the system had chosen me. And as I lay beneath the stars, the embers flickering faintly around me, I whispered to the night, I'll prove it. To my father. To Emily. To everyone. The system chimed once more, like a heartbeat syncing with my own. Quest generated. Become worthy of the Lionheart name. Reward. I closed my eyes and dreamed of fire. Leon Lionheart POV, age 15. The Lionheart estate glittered with light. Silken banners hung from gilded walls. Enchanted crystals floated overhead, and nobles paraded through the grand hall in tailored suits and jeweled gowns. Tonight was my father's birthday banquet, the kind of event that reminded the world just how untouchable the Lionheart family truly was. And me? I stood near the far wall, clutching a half-filled goblet, trying not to look like a servant. Because that's what I was, wasn't I? An illegitimate stain in a hall of shining names. TCH. I downed the wine, even though it burned my throat. It wasn't supposed to matter. I had the system now. The holy flame affinity. A secret that gave me hope. But secrets didn't silence whispers. Who let him in? Ah, the bastard boy. They say Arnub pitted him. He should be grateful he even breathes Lionheart air. Their words slithered around me like smoke. I was used to it. Almost numb. Almost. Until I heard a new voice. Loud. Unapologetic. Huh. So this is the so-called illegitimate cub of Lionheart. I looked up. A boy my age strode through the crowd, silver hair wild, wolf ears twitching with amusement. His suit looked like it had been forced onto him. The tie was crooked, the jacket slightly torn at the shoulder. And yet, he walked like he owned the place. A beastkin. He stopped in front of me, sharp grin flashing. You're Leon, right? The forgotten pup? My jaw clenched. And you are? Aiden Stormfang, he said proudly, puffing his chest. Heir of the Stormfang clan. Remember the name? Bastard boy. Stormfang. Beastkin nobility. Warriors famous for their ferocity on the battlefield. Of course, my father had invited them. The Lionhearts never missed a chance to remind the world of their alliances. Aiden tilted his head, eyes gleaming with mischief. So, tell me, Leon, how does it feel, living in the shadow of Emily Lionheart? Must be suffocating, yeah? The laughter around us sharpened. Nobles leaned closer, eager for drama. I swallowed hard. The old me would have looked down, endured it, prayed for the moment to pass. But not anymore. Not after the system. Not after the flame. I straightened, forcing myself to meet his eyes. Better than being a mutt who doesn't know how to tie his own suit. The hall went silent. Aiden blinked. Then, he burst out laughing. Huh, not bad, bastard boy. Not bad at all. But his grin didn't soften. If anything, it sharpened. Wolfish. Care to prove those words? Outside. A duel. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Duels between heirs weren't uncommon, but between me and him? Suicidal. Emily's gaze burned into me from across the hall. I knew she wanted me to refuse, to avoid dragging the family name lower than it already was. But my blood was already boiling. Fine, I said. Outside. The training yard behind the estate was lit by moonlight, the polished tiles glowing faintly with runes. Nobles gathered on the balconies, whispering eagerly. Aiden tossed aside his jacket, flexing his fingers. His nails lengthened, faint sparks of lightning crackling at the tips. So, bastard boy, show me what you've got. I tightened my grip on my wooden practice sword, the only weapon I was allowed. The system's faint chime echoed in my head. Quest. Defeat Aiden Stormfang. Reward. 30 coins. My pulse quickened. Rising Fang, I whispered, sliding in a stance. Aiden lunged first. His movements were raw, feral, his speed shocking for someone our age. Claws slashed down, sparks flying. I blocked barely. The impact rattled my arms, forcing me back 2 steps. Not bad. Aiden laughed, already pressing forward. At least you don't collapse on the first strike. I gritted my teeth. My sword blurred upward in a desperate arc. The blade scraped his arm, a shallow cut, but it burned faintly gold. Holy flame flickered along the wound. Aiden froze. His grin widened. You've got flame. Holy flame, I corrected, chest heaving. The whispers on the balcony sharpened, shock rippling through the nobles. Holy flame. Something even Emily had not awakened. Aiden threw back his head and howled with laughter. Huh, no wonder you got some bite. And then his claws crackled brighter, his stance shifting. Good, then I won't hold back. The duel blurred into flashes. Claw against steel, sparks against embers. His raw strength slammed against my shaky technique. My system guided me, correcting footwork, adjusting timing. But even with that, he was overwhelming. Still, I refused to yield. Every strike I blocked, every scratch I landed, it all stoked the fire inside me. Until finally, with one last desperate swing, I managed to knock him back a step. We froze there, both of us panting, both grinning despite the blood. Then Aiden laughed again. You're fun, bastard boy. I like you. I blinked. What? You heard me. Most nobles here are stuffed-up corpses walking in fancy coats. But you fight. He extended his hand, grin wide. Let's be friends. The crowd gasped again, this time in disbelief. I stared at his hand, at his stupid grin, at the boy who had just called me bastard and tried to claw my face off. And for some reason, I found myself smiling back. You're insane, I muttered, gripping his hand. Damn right I am, Aiden said proudly. But so are you. That was the night we clashed, and the night I gained my first real friend. Not because I wanted one, not because I sought one, but because Aiden Stormfang decided I was worth keeping. And for once, I didn't feel like just a shadow. I felt like someone who could stand. The next day dawned bright, though I hardly noticed. Sleep had been elusive. Every time I closed my eyes, the Freshers' Ball replayed in my head, not the cheerful dancing, not the shimmering chandeliers or the elegant gowns, but the moment when the laughter curdled into screams. The summoning circle, the stench of blood, the look of shock on students' faces when their world cracked open. No matter how much I tried to shove the memory aside, it clung to me like a shadow. And so, when the bell rang for the Mana Studies class, I walked in with my body present, but my mind miles away. The classroom. The Mana Studies classroom was one of the Academy's grand lecture halls. It is a joined class together for Class A and B, a semicircle of tiered seats descending toward a chalkboard, so large it looked like it could double as a castle gate. Floating mana crystals lit the room with soft, ambient light, and faint wisps of magical energy drifted in the air like invisible dust motes. At the front, Evelyn Whitehound stood in all her glory. She was as sharp as her name suggested, hair tied neatly back, eyes like polished steel, and posture so straight it seemed like she had swallowed a ruler as a child and never let out. Today she wore the instructor's uniform with an elegance that made it look tailored specifically for her, chalk in one hand and a thin wand tucked at her hip. If Alastair was the kind of teacher who tested your strength with sheer pressure, Evelyn was the one who could dismantle your confidence with a single raised eyebrow. And she was already writing on the board. Evelyn's lecture, "What is mana?" "Class," she began, her voice cutting clean through the chatter of first years like a blade through silk. "Before you swing swords, before you shout incantations, before you dream of glory, you must understand mana. Without mana, you are nothing but flesh and bone waiting to be broken." The room hushed. Even Leon leaned forward, eager, while Selena tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear, eyes bright with curiosity. Alara sat perfectly upright, composed, hands folded, taking mental notes before Evelyn even spoke. Lyra yawned and tried to balance her pen on her finger like a sword. Evelyn continued. "Mana is the fundamental life force of this world. Every living being has it, from humans to beasts, from the smallest sprout to the mightiest dragon. It flows invisibly, surrounding us, within us, binding the natural laws. Hunters like you do not merely fight monsters. You harvest their mana, condense it, and grow from it." She turned, drawing two circles on the board. One she labeled Mana Stone, the other Mana Core. Mana Stones and Mana Cores. Do not confuse them. A Mana Stone is formed passively, ambient mana crystallizing in nature, a byproduct of elemental accumulation. Useful, yes, but impure. A Mana Core, however, she underlined the word twice, her chalk snapping against the board. That is the heart of a beast. When a monster lives, fights, and evolves, its mana compresses into a core within its body. When you slay it, that core remains. Pure, potent, dangerous. Students scribbled furiously. Evelyn's eyes swept the hall, lingering a moment longer on Leon, as if testing whether the famed potential protagonist was keeping up. Leon met her gaze steadily, nodding. The hum of mana crystals and the scratching of quills filled the lecture hall. Evelyn's voice flowed like polished steel as she traced diagrams on the board, explaining the flow of mana in beasts. I, on the other hand, wasn't nodding. I wasn't even listening. Instead, my mind replayed the cafeteria gossip. The freshers' ball. How many students would die this time? In the story, Maria Frostheart's manipulations, combined with the demon's arrival, turned the ball into a massacre. But now, with all my changes, would the sequence still follow? Or would the demon appear sooner? Later? Bigger? I thought of Leon, Selena, Alara, even Lyra, all of them sitting here, blissfully attentive to chalk diagrams while death circled just beyond the horizon. If I did nothing, they'd bleed. If I acted too soon, I'd expose myself. If I chose wrong. No, I have to prepare. Runes. Alastair. And something stirred in my peripheral vision. A flicker. A streak. By the time my brain processed it, the object was already airborne, whistling through the mana-thick air at frightening speed. A piece of chalk, but not ordinary chalk. Evelyn had infused it with mana, subtle, refined, compressed into a sharp point. The damn thing moved like a bullet, trailing faint sparks, and it was aimed straight at my forehead. My heart didn't even have time to beat before instinct roared. Danger. Mental skill, quantum analysis mind, activated. The world slowed. No, it didn't just slow. It broke apart into probabilities. The classroom froze mid-motion. Leon's pen hovered above his notebook, ink caught in mid-drip. Selena's lips were parted, a word suspended in the air that would never be spoken at normal speed. Even the floating mana lamps dimmed into a stretched-out haze. And in this stretched reality, my mind accelerated. I saw the chalk clearly now, 0.47 seconds from impact. Its velocity, 62 meters per second. Trajectory, straight line. Target, center of my forehead. Margin of error, 0.02 centimeters. Outcome projections spun around me like holographic threads. Take it head on. 94% chance of mild concussion, 73% chance of public humiliation. Raise hand to block. 81% chance of suspicion from Evelyn. Catch mid-air, 100% cool points, but 92% chance of looking like I've trained in secret for years. Dodge slightly. 98% chance of success, 0% suspicion if subtle. The choice was obvious. At 0.17 seconds to impact, I tilted my head just a fraction. Not too much, just enough. The chalk whooshed past, grazing my hair. Time snapped back into place. Tuck. The chalk embedded itself into the wall behind me with a sharp crack, leaving a faint trail of smoke. The class jolted. Heads whipped around. Pencils clattered against desks. A couple of students yelped as if the sound were an explosion. For a heartbeat, there was silence. Then, Leon's jaw dropped. Did she just? Selena gasped softly. Damn, that could kill a guy, muttered Aiden from the back. Lyra, ever the commentator, leaned forward with a grin. Whoa, headshot attempt, narrowly missed. Is this mana studies or execution 101? I sat frozen, my posture calm, my eyes locked on Evelyn. She, in turn, stood at the front of the room with arms crossed, face carved from marble, gaze sharp as a blade. Mr. Michael, she said, her voice as smooth as ice, your reflexes are rather impressive. One might think you were expecting the attack. The class collectively sucked in a breath. I said nothing. My silence was deliberate, a wall to hide behind. Mr. Rank One, she said smoothly, her voice carrying across the hall, tell me, is my class so dull that you find yourself daydreaming? Perhaps you know everything already. Dozens of pairs of eyes pin me. Leon's worried. Selena's soft. Lyra's amused. Alara's analytical. Maria was probably plotting how to use this against me later. Some students exchanged pitying looks, others smirked, waiting for me to get torn apart. Trap my brain supplied instantly. If I argued, I'd come off arrogant. If I apologized, she'd press harder. The safest path was silence. So I kept my mouth shut. Evelyn's lips curved faintly. Silent, are we, since you seem so confident? Then let's test you, she said, voice ringing with steel. Tell me, what is mana synchronization? Why don't you explain this to the class? She turned, scrawling the words on the board in sharp, confident strokes. And just like that, all the pressure of the chalk hurtling at my head was replaced by something worse. My blood ran cold. Dozens of gazes. Whispers. Expectation. Damn it. Mana synchronization? Almost laughed. Not because I didn't know, but because it was such a ridiculous, basic concept for a trap question. Every gamer who had played the story knew it. It was one of the earliest tutorials for advanced mana control. Still, this was dangerous. If I answered poorly, I'd look like a fool. If I answered too well, I exhaled slowly. Fine. Scholar mode it is. Mana synchronization, I said evenly, letting my voice carry, is the process of making two different streams of mana compatible. Properly synchronized, they connect and interact without conflict, allowing the caster to wield them together as if they were one. Murmurs ran through the class. Evelyn raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. I continued. It is not merely a trick or a technique. Mana synchronization is a discipline, philosophical and practical. It does not force mana into submission, nor does it mix them into something new. Instead, it allows each stream to remain pure, while guiding their interactions into harmony. Symbiosis, not domination. Now the room was dead silent. Pins hovered, forgotten. I pressed on, heat in my words despite myself. The process rests on 4 core principles. Resonance, finding the natural frequency where the manas hum together. Compatibility, choosing elements that will not annihilate each other on contact. Weaving, threading the streams with precision so they overlap instead of collide. And sustain, maintaining that delicate balance over time, preventing collapse. I lean back. That is mana synchronization. The room erupted in stunned silence. Mouths hung open. Leon blinked like he'd just seen me sprout wings. Selena's lips parted in awe, her eyes shining. Lyra whistled low, muttering, "Well, damn." Alara's pen stopped mid-stroke, frozen. Even Maria's calculating mass cracked for a second, before she smirked thinly, as if to hide it. Evelyn's eyes, however, told the real story. Disbelief, shock, calculation. In her head, she was screaming, "This knowledge, this is 3rd/4th year material. No, it should be advanced study, or no first year should even know the terminology, let alone articulate it with such clarity. Just who are you, Michael?" But aloud, she only said, "Impressive." Her tone was cool, but her grip on the chalk was a little too tight. Great, just great. I had gone and done it again. I revealed knowledge far beyond my supposed level. Now, every instructor who heard about this would start watching me. Alastair, Evelyn, Harry the Rune Maniac. One by one, I was stacking flags like a pyromaniac piling tinder. But at least I dodged the trap. For now. Evelyn office, later that day. Evelyn sat alone at her desk, fingers steepled. "Michael Willson," she murmured. The student registry shimmered in front of her, displaying his placement exam scores. Rank 1. Also a background history of him before the academy. Commoner, a small guild, parents be rank hunter. Nothing exceptional. Yet that question was part of a draft list for faculty-level research discussion. Not even 3rd years have exposure to it yet. She leaned back slightly, thoughtful. He reasoned it out. On the spot. No hesitation, no memorized formula. He understood the instability. Yet he clam as he knows everything. Her eyes narrowed. No prodigy slips through this academy's records unnoticed. And yet, this guy will make all old guys in the Mage Tower to crazy towards him. She allowed herself a small smile. How very interesting,